all the actions at the Kenyatta University Sports Ground. Entrance is absolutely free.
So we have a nomenclature of terminologies, and all these terminologies, they are anchored on what we call physical activity. So physical activity is any bodily movement caused by skeletal muscles that leads to expenditure of energy. That's physical activity. So when you are walking, that's physical activity. When you are running, that's physical activity. Any movement caused by skeletal muscles. Skeletal muscles are the muscles that are attached to the skeleton that leads to the expenditure of energy. As your take-home assignment, I would like you, when we meet next time, you should be able to define to me sports, physical education, recreation, leisure, play, and games. That's your take-home assignment. And I thank my teachers. Mwalimu George Kiganjo is here, and Professor Peter Buhala is here, because they taught me, and I'm here because of you. So that's a take-home assignment for you guys. When we meet next time, we'll be able to talk about that. Physical activity has very many benefits, including economic benefits. And I know my friend Mike Rabar will be talking about sports and business. Physical activity has benefits, health benefits, social benefits, communal benefits, mental health. There is a correlation between participation in physical activity and an increase in academic aptitude. Physical activity has a positive correlation with acuity, sleep patterns, and diet. Physical activity is a risk factor for non-communicable diseases. In Africa, we are faced with a double burden of communicable diseases on one hand and the non-communicable diseases on the other hand, which means we are still experiencing high incidence of malaria, tuberculosis, etc., but we are also seeing an increase in non-communicable diseases, including hypertension, heart disease, and even obesity is now ranked as a disease. Heart disease, hypertension, stress, among others. There are 4 risk factors for non-communicable diseases, and physical activity is one of them. Harmful consumption of alcohol, tobacco, and so we are saying that as researchers in this area, we have a responsibility of ensuring that people move more and sit less. People move more and sit less. Dr. Mundia, are we able to? So having defined physical activity, we have the recommended dose. We have the recommended dose for physical activity. Children and youth are supposed to accumulate at least 60 minutes of moderate to vigorous physical activities. At least 60 minutes of moderate to vigorous physical activities every day, and preferably on all days of the week. Adults are supposed to accumulate at least 30 minutes of moderate to vigorous physical activities every day on most and preferably all days of the week. That's why we encourage us to step on the grass. When you go somewhere and you see this signpost saying, keep off the grass, we are saying, please step on the grass. We are saying that we need to unplug our children. Unplug the children, allow them to play and to grow. Yeah, very good. Allow them to play and to grow. And that's why we want to thank the government, really. And His Excellency the President was very clear yesterday in his speech. He spent a bit of time talking about the CBC, and we know that CBC has put physical education recreation, leisure, physical activity at the center of the learning process. And we are very, very happy as KU and as researchers. Okay, oh, okay. I've done that. I've gone through that. I was talking about the recommended physical activity dose. So we are saying that when you go, for example, to the health clinic or to the doctor, one of the vital signs should be your participation in physical activity. And we are working with the Ministry of Health to ensure that when you go there, they don't just take your, the vital signs as we know them, BP, but they also ask questions specific to physical activity. Because with that, then we are able to recommend for you the dose for healthy, active living through physical activity. I'll not repeat here. Physical activity, I know Professor Malete talked about sustainable goal number 8, but I see physical activity to be having a contribution in each of these ones, especially goal number 17, which is the collaboration and partnership goal. I already talked about this, that non-communicable diseases are on the increase. They are on the increase, especially in Africa, sub-Saharan Africa, because our health systems are overstretched, because we are facing communicable diseases. At the same time, we are seeing an increase in non-communicable diseases. And physical inactivity, sitting more, moving less, and eating more, is predisposing us to some of these non-communicable diseases. Okay? Oops. Okay. Okay, let me say next. It is easy when the speaker is controlling the next. Oops. Anyway, we are seeing now an emerging cultures. Yeah, this is what I want. Emerging cultures. We are seeing new cultures emerging. And especially with devolution, some of the bad habits are moving down to the counties from the capital city. Devolution is great, it's very good because resources are going down there, but it also comes with certain things which are negative. So what are some of these emerging cultures? We are seeing a transition in physical activity. People are moving less. People are sitting more. In my village, there are so many bodas. You just need to call, they come up to your doorstep and they'll take you where you want to go and they bring you back. People are no longer walking. So we are seeing that culture of physical activity transition. We are seeing fast foods, they are everywhere. They are everywhere. We are seeing cases of, next, fast foods are everywhere and they are creating a colony. Unfortunately, in the African setup, there is the public opinion that if you are a professor, then it is a particular way you are supposed to look in a particular way. If you are looking as an ectomorph, if you are looking slender, then either your wife is beating you, or or she's not cooking enough food, or you are under stress. I want to say here that I'm not under stress and my wife is not beating me. So we are seeing this coming up. Next slide. Next slide. Okay. All right. We are seeing these supermarkets. I saw this, it was very interesting. This study tied Kenyan obesity increase to supermarket foods. Right? Nowadays you find even ugali, I see githeri in the supermarket. So then we don't have to go and work hard. You just go to the supermarket, 5 minutes, you have your food. Next, please. Next. But we have the medicine. We have the medicine to this. Look, and I'm not against anybody. I mean, if people are in business, I'm not against them. Every Tuesday, if you go to the Eastern Bypass, or you go to this place called what? At the Engine, Tuesday, you'll find a very long queue because it is terrific what? Terrific Tuesday. Buy one and get one free. We want to replace this so that when you go to Nairobi Sports House, buy one soccer ball and get one what? Free. Is it not? Buy one hockey stick and get one free. Buy one basketball and get one free. Why can't we have this happening with our sports? And we are requesting the government, is it possible to waive taxes on sports equipment? Is it possible to introduce back, when I was in primary school, we had what we call Kenya School Equipment Scheme. And they used to bring a lot of these balls in the primary school, and people were very active. The children were very active. They were outside there. We are seeing now, even this cycling is kind of dying. It's dying, being replaced by all these borders and the tuk-tuks. If you go to Kampala, it's the same story. If you go to Busia, it's the same story. If you go to capital city here, it's the same story. The same story in Dar es Salaam, the same story. We have to do something about it without getting people out of their business. We are saying there has to be an interplay between physical activity, between healthy, active living, without getting people out of business. There is something for everybody and in a very healthy environment. Next, I'm almost done. So we've done studies and we have published studies to look at walkability, active transportation, and from our studies, it was very clear, it was evident that those in the urban areas were sitting more compared to the children who are in the rural areas who walk. And, and this walking, these children who walk in the rural areas is not because they like walking. I suspect that they have no option. If you give them the option of jumping on a motorbike, I'm sure they will be able to. So this work for us, cut out for us. Next. These are Kenyan runners. We studied the Kenyan runners, top Kenyan runners, and their story is different from the Kenyan runners of today. The lifestyle, the habitual lifestyle of, say, Mike Boyd or Kipchoge Keino or Amos Biwott, 1968 Mexico City Olympics, is totally different from if you look at, say, Asbel Kiprop or even our Manyala. If you look at the lifestyle of Ferdinand today and Fatwell Kimayo. Fatwell Kimayo won a gold medal in 100 meters, 1974, Christchurch, New Zealand. He won. If you talk to him and look at their lifestyles, they are different. But still, they're still great. Despite the difference, all of them are great. But as researchers, we have work to do to ensure that we protect these very important people. Next. This is about screen time. We are faced with what we call screen invasion. There are TVs and all this everywhere. Everywhere. If you take my phone for 1 hour, I will really feel tortured. Because I want to communicate with the world, People no longer use the laptop. But once I'll have my phone, I can communicate with the world, and we can do so many things. So we are faced with screen. Screen, mobile phones, laptops, tablets, they help us to ensure that work is going on, that processes are moving on, that things are going on. But we have to remember our constant north should be the recommended physical activity dose. So use your phone, use your laptop, no problem. But remember to exercise and remember to accumulate the recommended physical activity dose. Next. I'll not repeat this because the previous speaker talked about it. Physical inactivity is the 4th leading risk factor for global mortality. Next. In Africa, this is a study that was done, and you can see that Africa is starting to get dark. You can see it's starting to get dark, and we need to ensure that Africa remains white and shiny through habitual physical activity. Next. We have done a lot of research. We have published. Happy to see Joy. Joy, are you there? Are you in the house? Joy is like my running mate. Joy is there. We do a lot of work with Joy, and we publish together. And because we are expected as researchers and scholars, we are expected to not only do research, but also disseminate to the community so that we can be able to change practice, change beliefs, and also ensure that we influence policy. Next. I'm finishing, Mr. Chairman. So, we developed this tool because we wanted an Africa homemade tool for assessing physical activity. And we are very happy with this instrument. And this is something that you can use to assess physical activity among children and youth in sub-Saharan Africa. We developed it, and it is being used. We have, because we follow, we have seen that it's being used even in other countries. And we feel good because that's a contribution to the body of knowledge. Next. Next. Conclusion, yes. In conclusion, we are seeing a decrease in physical activity. We are seeing a decrease in people walking. And maybe we don't need to blame these people, because probably the built environment is not conducive for walking. Probably the built environment has some issues that touch on insecurity, because you will not walk if there's no path. You can't fight with the matatus. You cannot walk if you feel insecure or you feel unsafe. So we need to ensure, as we preach this gospel of people walking, people running, people cycling, we need to work with other sectors, the Ministry of Environment, the Ministry of Security, so that everybody plays a role in ensuring healthy, active living. Next. We need to continue creating awareness, even through the. Let us not wait. We can start CBC now, today. We don't have to wait until that time. Next. Yeah, this is the last one. We need to consolidate fragmented efforts. There are so many people doing wonderful things, but our efforts are fragmented. Therefore, the impact is minimum. We want to see people writing in the newspapers every Sunday, every Friday or Saturday. We need our people, graduate students, writing in a journalistic language, non-scientific language, in a manner that can be understood by the readers. We need to talk to people outside our area, so that we don't talk to ourselves, because it's like preaching to the choir. We need to bring in the media and other people in the other sectors to listen to what we are talking about, so that we can all move together. I think let me stop there in the interest of time. Thank you very much, Chairman.
Okay, thank you. I think Vincent is going to another meeting. Anybody with a question, one or two, so that we can release him? Anyone, two questions? No question? You talked about consumption of harmful consumption of alcohol. Is there any way you can have consumption of
harmful consumption of alcohol is a risk factor for non-communicable diseases. So Professor Buhala is asking, do we have non-harmful consumption of alcohol? I'll leave that one to our nutritionists. They are here. The nutritionists who are here, please, you'll have to help me out in answering that question. Maybe not now, but later.
The last one?
Yes.
Now that you have told us about the problem, which is very rampant in our Kenyan society, and you find that we as a Kenyatta University community, we are a part of the larger Kenyan society, which is suffering the problems you have told us. What interventions, measures, or mechanisms have you put in place in our small KU community to make sure that the community of the students and the other workers are safe from excessive alcohol, avenues for physical activity, and all those things? Thank you.
Thank you. That's a good question. What interventions have we put in place? Number one, I play football. Number 7, I normally play on Mondays, on Wednesdays, and on Fridays. Tomorrow we'll meet in the field. Number 2, we have put policies to encourage our students, not just the elite students, not the students who will be participating in the Fasu games, but even the non-elite students. We have given them access to the field, the playing fields, and we encourage them, to be out to play. Number 3, we have put in place policies to encourage our professors to come out of the boardrooms and walk. And then number last, Kenyatta University is a very walkable campus. It is the only campus in this part of the world that you find this place for pedestrians and this space for the motorists. Very soon, we'll be asking motorists to park very far and walk on campus, because it's very nice and beautiful. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, the last one.
Thank you, Prof, for the good presentation. I was just wondering whether you've done any research on inactivity amongst the persons with disability, because I'd be interested to know the results. Thank you.
That's a very good question. Because we don't want to be a jack of all trades, my professor, Professor Buhala, is a walking dictionary in the area of disability studies. He will be making his keynote presentation, I think, tomorrow. So I will not answer that question because he's the expert in that area. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think we are published with you on one of them, so I'll be sharing it with him. So
Yes.
we have published a number of things with him. I want to stop there so that I go to the next.
Thank you.
Ngugi. Okay.
Yes.
Since you are a DVC here in this university, my old friend, Kenyatta University, the way I know it since I joined here in 1976, was that there was a lot of walking distance, like you're saying, but there has been a lot of development in terms of buildings. And every new building coming up, every single building, there's a small parking. There's parking for, you know what I mean, for every, they create a parking outside there. Is it possible for you to have one big, large compound where all members of staff park their cars, and then use the other spaces for sports or any other development, so that those guys are forced to walk from that parking lot, let's say near the main library. I'm just giving an example. And you are going to the resource, the other end. So, in other words, what I'm saying, if you go to big cities in the world, there's only one parking area, and people walk or ride bicycles and so on. But in Kenyatta University, it's every little faculty or office parking lot outside there. So these people don't walk. They literally crawl from the office into their car. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll now answer that question as a DVC, not as a Professor Ncaa researcher. Kenyatta University was originally a military barrack. And I am sure we remember and we appreciate our history. And moving forward, with the help of our Vice Chancellor, we have come up with a master plan, Kenyatta University Master Plan, which looks at this university 25 years to come. And in that master plan, we are reorganizing the university so that we can be like other universities in developed countries, because we are a developed university. And the plan is to ensure that we have secluded parking space as you come on campus, even for security purposes, so that you park your vehicle somewhere and then you are able to do your businesses in the university and you go back near the gate where you had left your car. So as a Deputy Vice Chancellor in charge of research, innovation and outreach, I can give you the assurance of the university management that we are reorganizing the university facilities. Thank you very much. And Chairman, allow me now to go because we have another meeting now.
Okay. Thank you very much, Vincent, for a very thought-provoking presentation.
Thank you.
You're always very good on those issues. Ngugi, I'm going to borrow that from you. We are developing a master plan, and I'll put that in. We have a central place also for ourselves. So thank you for raising it. I want to ask, thank you so much, Vincent. I want to ask us to receive Takanori Oishi, who has already put his presentation up on teaching Japanese children the play and culture in Cameroon. Welcome. We can't hear you. We can't hear you. Okay.
Can hear. Sorry, can you hear me? Okay, can I start? Okay.
You have 10 minutes, 10 minutes.
Sorry, I would like to speak the 15 minutes because I have waited for the more than 5 hours. Sorry.
Okay, you'll have it.
It's not my fault. It's your fault. Today I'm very happy to make a presentation here. I'd like to firstly thank to everyone who had committed in the organization of this very unique and interesting conference. My study, my research was somewhat, I think, a bit different from the other talk of this series of the presentation. Actually, I would like to give a talk about our action research in between Japan and Cameroon. And this is actually a part of the collaborative research conducted with a group of researchers, especially Dr. Noriko Iizuka and other teams. Cameroon is located at the Central Africa, where tropical forest is continuing from the Atlantic coast to the nearly close to the Lake Tanganyika. And in this the vast forest area, there are more than at least 15 forest dwelling hunter-gatherers living. One of them, the Baka hunter-gatherers, is the focus of today's talk. This is a tropical forest view from the periphery of the Yaoundé city. Yaoundé is the capital of the Cameroon, as you know. So this is the southern half of this country is very rich in forest resources. And inside there, the Baka people living. And for them, forest is a living environment, literally. And when you visit the camps, this is like this. They are living inside the forest, and you can find their huts, mongrel huts, and dogs and the machete, and the people chatting and enjoying their time. And sometimes they catch the wildlife and make it into their food. But very recently, their life and culture is facing at very difficult situations, mostly brought by the development projects, for example, such as logging or mining, and at the same as the conservation efforts by the governments. Both of them are trying to tend to keep the clear boundary between the forest and the local peoples. So this session raises many sustainability questions. Now, I'd like to introduce the situation of the Baka children. Baka people are recognized by international community as indigenous people. So many schooling projects have been brought by external and internal NGOs. This is an example of the school primarily for the Baka children. There, the NGOs, in collaboration with international NGO, try to publish textbook reading in the Baka language. Here you can find the image of the Jenge spirit that I will mention later in this talk. Generally, Baka children play very well. There are many kinds of the play repertories. I just show the three type of, here I put the photographs of the prey I could have observed using the mice. This is wild mice. They catch using and they cook, and whether they enjoy by making sounds with baby mice. This is a very part of their prey. Later, I will also introduce this. I'm the one project working among them, and we have the history of more than almost the 3 decades working with the Baka population in Cameroon. And there are many publications. Here I listed some of them. And sometimes Japanese researchers and Baka informants playing. This is just as playing, doing imitating karate. Here I would like to justify about our action research. Our major is anthropology, and anthropological fieldwork. The most important part is co-creation of knowledge and the understanding better between field workers and informants, and it often involving the mixture of different cultures. In this action research, we have attempted to make this kind of transcultural experiences to the more broader public through play acting. We have conducted a series of workshops for Japanese elementary students about Baka hunter-gatherer life world of Cameroon. Many people maybe can ask, why children? My response is that with children, we can't employ the knowledge-based approach. Instead, we need to challenge. We have the challenge to make some kind of innovation of the non-verbal ways of teaching other cultures. This is the image of the Japanese children living at the Kyoto City. This is the image inside the nature, but most Japanese students living in the very urban environment, and for them it is rare to play outside recently. We have planned a workshop with, this is the groups of our team of the anthropologists. All of us have the career of more than years. I have 20 years of the career in research in Cameroon, but the most youngest is the member also have the career of more than 5 years. And we have also collaborated with facilitator and professional actors to plan the workshop. And sometimes we also ask for advices from the school teachers and pedagogues prior to the practice. This is a poster of our workshop. To enable the objective of our workshop, we had employed the tools. For example, one important thing is we have fully use the entire classroom space as a field, playing field, creating an environment that evokes an image of the region. Secondly, we have developed a tracing of everyday life of the Baka using objects, video images, costumes, photos, musical instruments, role play and group play, and the food and drink we have brought from Cameroon. Thirdly, we have used the acting out scenes of daily life in groups, and children respond in their own words through questions, for example. So this is a zoning of the classroom into forest, zone, and village. This is a room, and this is a forest and the village zone. The important, we plentifully used the images of the ethnographical materials that we have collected in Cameroon. This is actual image over there. So using this is the environmental manipulation, we have tried to imitate the tropical forest environments of Cameroon in the Japanese classroom. Today I would like to use this case practice to explain the details of the program. Its title is Elephants. Let's play with the elephants in the forest. It had been conducted in the November 2018. We organized with 3 anthropologists and 5 facilitators and performers. And 27 children and 14 parents have participated in total. So the basic flow of this workshop is as follows. First, every Japanese children, as well as their parents, were given the names in Baka language. Then they asked to pretend to become a Baka children. And they travel between forest zone and the village zone in the forest. Participants trace Baka's life stage development as a hunter. In other words, they try to get the ecological knowledge or the art to share the game meats and how to make a successful elephant hunting, and to do so, how to cause the split of the forest. One of the most important thing is to make them experience the Baka way of the making living in the forest, not by my lecture, but not by experiencing using their body or sensory experiences. For example, the children experience the close body contact with other children inside the mongrel huts. Mongrel huts is something like this. This is the drawn by one of my informant. And inside the huts, the children tend to sleep very closely. It is sometimes called as co-sleeping. So similarly, Japanese the children experienced such a situation using their body. And also, we make them hear the forest sound. Yeah. The tropical forest, the environmental soundscape is very interesting, and sometimes the children often fall asleep. Sorry, I understand that my presentation is already 15 minutes. I must go faster. So I like to also introduce then the Japanese children also experience how Baka plays using their body. This is the chest, how to say, chest twisting. They often observe among the Baka. The Ayana Tanaka is one of the PhD students. She is very the professional in studying this area. So she shows a video of the how Baka doing this, and the participants' children try this. Other play is the Joko Joko. All the children sitting like making the river form, and the ball. This is Joko Joko. This play is very interesting, and also you can find that characteristics that any participants get close to each other. Then the students are requested to participate in the hunting in parentheses. Because in the classroom we can't bring the real African animals, so we use we have made the real size animal and plants with the handwriting arts, and the children hunted them in groups, and they practiced how to share with other people or the other team. After such as a trial of the hunting, when our partner researcher from Cameroon, who is studying the wildlife ecology, is present in Japan, we also communicated about the animal they have caught, about about each species. So after then, we have also students, children also enjoyed the reading theater or the play of the elephant hunting with mysterious power. Using the our ethnographic material, the students, group of students distributed with instruction notes how to perform huntings using the supernatural abilities.
Dr. Oishi, your 15 minutes
Yes.
ended.
Okay. Sorry. I must conclude. Okay, sorry. Sorry. So the children finally they requested to make reflection with their experience inside these practices. And what we find is that with this method, they can not understand with the knowledge, but they can feel or imagine how the Baka children living in the forest in their way. The workshop, we have utilized play acting as well as improvisational theater methods to include Japanese students' understanding and insight into other cultures. In this practice, play acting is very important that may enable children to gain insight into the otherness in self by thinking of another culture as if it was their own. And here, play involving bodies of self and others are very key for this nonverbal channel of transcultural interpretation by children. And we have also reported about this practice in collaboration with indigenous NGOs in the Eastern Cameroon. And with their opinion, these methods can be developed to also facilitate better understanding and communication, both inside and outside of Baka communities. Thank you for your attention, and sorry for the long time use.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, Oishi. I'll give the audience a chance to ask him a question because he's far online. We finish with him. Any question? No comment? Just for me, I want to ask you, I like the idea of you taking the culture from Cameroon to Japan. Do you have a provision of Japanese culture being brought to the Baka people so that they can also know how the Japanese children play?
I think if we can practice such kinds of exchange, it might be it would be very interesting. Thank you for your comments.
Okay, thank you. So the next person we're going to listen to is Masaki Shimada, play of people living around the Lake Tanganyika. Welcome.
Well. Could you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, let's get started. Now, first of all, thank you very much for your invitation, and thank you very much, the chair, Dr. Kariuki. Thank you very much. And let's get started. My name is Masaki Shimada. It sounds like Masai, but my name is Masaki. Okay, I'm not. I'm Japanese and quite short Japanese guy. Well, I'm a primatologist who is researching on wild Japanese macaques or wild chimpanzees living in Tanzania normally. But today, my presentation is about the play of people living around the Lake Tanganyika, Western Tanzania. Why I'm talking about the play of people? This is because the local Tongo people who are living in Western Tanzania, they are living with chimpanzees, which I observe, and they help us quite frequently. And now I'm very interested in their culture and also their behavior. So I started to research them. Their subsistence is originally the slush and the barn agriculture, and they are still living in a small village, and traditionally they have a strong relationship with many supernatural beings. Their lifestyle is deeply dependent on nature itself. The males are often hunting, cultivating, long safari, and witch doctor. And also females, they need to gathering natural foods and farming and houseworks. But recently, not only traditional way of living, they need to do modern they need to fit modern lifestyles. Because of the diffusion of cash economy and the diffusion of smartphones, the males not only craftsmen, but also earn their own money to live. Also females need to sell their vegetables in the market, like that. Now, the second viewpoint is play behavior. Play behavior is my research topic, and normally I'm researching on the chimpanzees' playing behavior. Play of humans is known to be universal, but it's quite different region to region. And the play behavior is not only for humans, but also widespread in the animal kingdoms, like chimpanzees, horses, dogs, like that. But play among humans are quite unique because the play among humans have complex and arbitrary rules, and there are strong sex and gender differences. And play styles are influenced by region-specific culture and also environment. And the researcher says play is the foundation of culture itself. And human play, the children gather up and play together. Thus, the children has their own culture, different from adults, and their own society. This is why the play contributes to their socialization. My research topic and purpose, today's purpose is the study to reveal the relationship between Tongwe society and play for each gender and age group. Because the Tongwe society is now traditional and modern subsistence are mixed and changing so fastly. Now research details like this. I researched quite a long time, but I used only two years data. Research field is Western Tanzania, the Tongwe lands, like Katumbi, the towns like Katumbi, Karia, and small village for Galaba. And if I observe like this photo, I just take a note, how many members participate in the play, and gender and age composition, and what kind of play they are played. This is a definition. Age categories are divided into 5 categories: infants, child, juvenile, adolescent, and adult. Play categories are divided into 6 categories: games with rules, games with established rules, including sports, board games, tactics games, physical games, and card games. And secondly, modern things, play related to modern things. And third one is a physical play, which is play related to the body and physical exercise. The foraging play is a fourth, which is play related to the foraging activities. Fifth category is playing house, play related to food, clothes, housework, and tools. And the last category is music, play related to singing, dancing, and sounds. Now I show you results. This is all the repertoire of play styles I observed in 2 years. Play with rules, modern things, and physical play, foraging play, playing house, and music. It's quite, it is quite difficult to see all the list, but I just summarize like this. In summarize, frequently observed play categories in Tongwe is a game with rules is the top. The modern things and physical play, is quite large number of occupied the observed data. Oppositely, infrequently observed play categories are including foraging play, playing house, and music. Using these data, all the play events were counted according to the gender composition and play category like this. And males like this and females like this. The x-axis means the male and female mixed sex, and y-axis shows the number of events. I found that the play of males has more events observed than play of females outside. The males are dominant and females are it's not so many. Dominant play categories are different depending on gender composition. Male groups includes a game with rules and physical play. Male solitary, modern things are dominant. But the female group playing house is the orange, playing house and playing rules are dominant. Using the same data, I counted all the play events according to the age category and play category. X-axis means age category. I found dominant play category changes with age. For example, infant. During infant age, the physical play is dominant. But in child and juvenile, it's quite decreased like this, and modern things dominant. And then adolescent and adults, game with rules, the blue one, dominant. Using the data of the number of the participants, I calculated the mean group size of play events in each play category according to each age category. The x-axis is age, infant, child plus juvenile, adolescent plus adult. Y-axis means mean group size. As you see, game with rules, this blue one, have larger group size than other play categories. And group size of play increase with age, like this, Now, using data of game with rules, I counted all the data of game with rules according to the gender composition. X-axis shows males and juveniles and adolescents. Next, females, juvenile, and adolescent, like this. The red one and pink one shows the sports, football and dodgeball. I found interesting sex differences because even though they are the children use the same handmade balls, males play football, but females play dodgeball. Adolescent and adult males, this one. Their games with rules are so diverse, including football, board games, and tactic games. Now I show all the data of playing house. I found this interesting gender difference because females imitate gathering firewood, buying or selling at market, the playing store, and preparing meals in the playing house. While males imitate building a hut itself, which requires complex techniques and so on. It's quite different. This is the last result. This is the data of all the data of the play related to modern things. And this is very interesting because the modern this play category is observed only in the males, and only in the male child and juveniles. Play mostly by solitary male child or juvenile. And interestingly, they are so motivated by something rotating, like tires, rotating tires, rotating some steel rings, and pushing the handmade cars like this, bicycle. So they're interested in something rotating. Now this discussion. Play styles and gender difference in play of Tonga. The characteristic of play styles in Tonga people, the firstly I showed you the play of games. I mean, game with rules, modern things, and physical plays are dominant, but music, phrasing play, and playing house are not so many. This propensity is quite contrast to the play of hunter-gatherer children, but similar to propensity to the play of Western society, like Japanese society, I think. And I found a strong gender difference of play. Observational frequency of play itself is, the males are so many, but female play is not so many. And interestingly, using the same ball play, the males play football, but females play dodgeball. I don't know why. This is the final slide. I want to stress this just final section, play and society. Play activity functions as a place for children to develop physical and communicational skills that are essentially for living today's Tongwe society, where traditional and modern subsistence are mixed. There may be restrictions on play, on which play a child can participate in based on the gender and age, maybe. And that's why gender differences found in adult society may be acquired through play activities. This is why the play activities are so important for them. Thank you very much.
Now, Masaki, that was a very, very good presentation.
Thank you.
Is there any question from the floor? Yeah, I just like the way you divided play in different sections, you know, play with rules, with modern things, music, foraging, and so forth. I think, is this published research?
Yes, yes, it is.
Yeah, if you could share with us, because it's very interesting to see how our children, for example, in Kenya, are playing. Does it bring the same results? But I guess it would. But it's good to document how our children play, and whether the ones in the rural areas, like where you did, versus those in cities, whether their play is different based on the different categories that you have raised.
Yes, I agree. So I share with the chat later.
Anybody else who wants to say something else? Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much for your presentation. I really enjoyed your presentation. The next person we want to listen to is a keynote speaker, Professor Yasushi Enomoto. Professor Yasushi Enomoto, his bio is in the book, so I would not want to repeat. You can read it and see what he has done. But he is from he's an associate professor in Faculty of Health and Sports Science, University of Tsukuba, Japan. Have you loaded his presentation?
Yep, thank you. Thank you for kind introduction and inviting me such a great conference. Okay.
Go ahead, we are ready for you.
Okay, yeah. It's a great honor for me to have a talk. I'm Yasushi Enomoto from University of Tsukuba, Japan. Today I will listen to my research topics using inertial measurement unit to apply sport performance evaluation, especially running. IMU I used is developed by Casio. You probably know the company produced G-Shock. I have a lot of collaborative research projects with them, and the new product of commercial use IMU for running evaluation has been launched already. So first I will introduce myself. I graduated at the University of Tsukuba 1996 and also finished PhD program 2001. And I served as an assistant for Sport and Physical Education Center from 2001 to 2004. And also simultaneously, I worked as an assistant coach of track and field team for 3 years. And moved to Kyoto. I worked as an associate professor at the Kyoto University of Education, mainly PE teacher education program. And 2011, back to University of Tsukuba as an associate professor and also coach for track and field team. Now I am head coach for the track team. I am continuing coach for mainly middle distance team. These two are the top runners in Japan now. Kentaro Usuda, 146, men's 800. Saki, 413, women's 1500. I know they are not so good in Kenya, but in Japan, their record are within the top 10 rank in the history of Japan. I studied mainly biomechanics of distance running on the track since I was undergraduate student. It's almost 30 years ago. Someone know, at those days, I didn't have a cell phone. Only few number of contents on the internet. So no Google, no Amazon. Very inconvenient compared today. So I videotaped using tape cassette camcorder a lot of track races of 5K mainly. And they sized manually at human landmarks for one running cycle at the first and the second half of the race. It took an hour for just one trial to digitize. However, it was not waste of time. I can understand the mechanics of running and some technical point deeply, which is very useful for research and coaching now. I have joined several international scientific activities. This is a research project at the World Championships in Athletics at Osaka 2007. I worked as a chief coordinator in this project. The head of the project was Professor Ae. He was a supervisor for me in undergraduate and graduate programs. Some of results were published on NSA, official journal of IAAF, now WA. In 2016, we hosted the International Conference on Biomechanics in Sports at Tsukuba. I worked also as a Secretary General. And also I organized a press session of running economy. I invited Dr. Gary Heise from Northern Colorado, Dr. Chris Arlano from Colorado University, and Dr. Kirrainen from Jyväskylä, Finland. They are the very famous researcher about running economy in the world. On the right hand, Mr. Otani is a chief researcher of Casio, developed IMU. I had an experience study abroad. First, when I just became an assistant professor at the university, 2005, I went to UC Davis to study with Dr. Keith Williams. He is one of the most famous researchers about biomechanics of distance running. This photo took when we climbed up at top of Table Mountain. We attended the conference of International Society of Biomechanics held at Cape Town. So he is like my dad at the USA. Then I have an opportunity to be a visiting scholar at the University of Oregon with Dr. Mike Hahn. He's a very unique researcher in US. He is organizing Bowerman Sports Science Clinic. He mainly studied biomechanics of running and walking, not only for athletes, but also sometimes for amputee person. He also came to Tsukuba as a visiting scholar. So he's like my brother in US. This is very new international collaboration. As most of you know, I visited Kenyan University at March 2020, just before the pandemic. It was a wonderful experience for me, not only to attend the conference, but also to touch unusual nature for me. And because I was a runner and then a coach, so I respect Kenyan runner very much, with respect to self-control for daily running, foods, and the mind. I was very interested in the Kenyan way. Next time, I am curious about going to the mountain area to watch running training camp. Okay, so let's start today's topics about the Inertial Measurement Unit, shortly IMU. Recently, we can use a small and wireless inertial sensor, which has 3-axis accelerometer, gyroscope, magnetic sensor, and GPS. I have a lot of collaborative research projects since 2013 with Casio. The company of Casio developed original inertial sensor mounted on sacrum, clipping on running pants for distance running. So this is basic of mass. So if we can get the acceleration of human movement, we can calculate the velocity and the displacement by different integration. Of course, it is possible to calculate from displacement to velocity and acceleration by differentiation. However, it has some difficulties to calculate from the acceleration measured by IMU to velocity and displacement. They are drift, noise, indefinite constant, and the orientation of the sensor. So we use a Kalman filter to estimate orientation of the IMU. We had experiment to confirm reliability and validity. 13 student distance runners were participated in this study. They were asked to run 5 different speeds in the track. We captured human motion to calculate center of mass, shortly COM, and also to make sure the movement of sensor attached on the IMU retroflective markers. And the sensor also calculated from IMU data. We calculate the vertical, lateral, the forward-backward oscillation of their movement. This oscillation of the sensor were calculated by double integration of acceleration data with the assumption of same position and velocity continued in each step. Oscillation means maximum minus minimum value in one step. It's easy to understand the forward backward oscillation. You looks like the running on treadmill of a constant speed. Okay, we check, calculate the cross correlation and the Brand-Altman plot to compare COM, the marker, and the sensor data. So show you the result. This is lateral, forward, backward, and vertical oscillation with running speed. These data are averaged data for all subjects. Vertical oscillation is good coincident with sensor, marker, and COM for a wide range of running speed. However, lateral and forward-backward oscillation of sensor and marker is greater than COM. We can confirm the validation of the oscillation. On the left shows correlation between sensor and COM. We can see good correlation between the sensor and COM. On the right shows Brand-Altman plot, x-axis, average two data, y-axis is difference of two data. Brand-Altman plot shows little tendency, which means that we have a tendency, greater oscillation, greater sensor value. So this figure shows same plot as vertical for forward, backward, and lateral oscillation. Upper shows correlation, and the lower shows Brand-Altman plot. These are not good results, which means no relation between sensor and COM, and show strong tendency at the Brand-Altman plot to be greater sensor value in case of greater oscillation. I will explain the reason why sensor has greater movement compared to COM. This is schematic illustration of top view of pelvis with sensor and COM. Even in the case COM has no lateral movement like this, the sensor has lateral movement due to rotation of pelvis. So in the future, I would like to try modification of lateral and forward-backward oscillation using rotation data. Okay, skip to this slide. So we can trust vertical movement from IMU. The sensor, so we can trust the sensor provides step frequency and running cycle of each step. Then we can calculate based on lap time or other information about the distance and time. So we can calculate combination of step frequency and running speed and step length. Now, Casio IMU could output these parameters to evaluate running motion. So performance parameters, step sequence parameters, body action, mainly pelvis movement, and running efficiency. We applied IMU for the actual race. Our campus is the main spot of the marathon. So start and goal for Tsukuba Marathon. The marathon competed at 42 kilometers. And also I am a member of the executive committee, so I have a research project on the marathon. We recruited runners who participated in Tsukuba Marathon as subjects. Total number 91 runners, 71 men, 20 women, females. Age of subject is ranged from 20 to 71, very wide range. So data was collected and was stored in the internal memory of the sensor. So running distance was calculated using onboard GPS unit and verified with the time and distance data of the official time in each 5K. Running speed, step length, and frequency, contact time, vertical oscillation were calculated by the algorithm developed by Casio. And also, vertical stiffness was calculated using the equation presented by Morin. The subjects are classified in 4 groups depending on their goal time: sub 3, sub 4, sub 5, sub 6. The number of runners: 16, 28, 34, 13. This figure shows the average running speed for each group with distance. Running speed of sub 3 was high and sustained, although running speed of sub 3 and 4 statistically decreased in the final stage. For sub 5 and sub 6 decreased even at the mid stage of the race. This figure shows step length and step frequency with distance. Sub 3 shows step length and sub 3 showed tendency to keep step length but decrease in step frequency. Other groups showed decrease in step length but keep step frequency. Left is vertical oscillation and right is contact time. Vertical oscillation of sub 3 show low value, so small vertical oscillation, and keep it through the race. Other groups show decrease at the final stage. Contact time for all groups increased at the final stage of the race. This figure shows vertical stiffness. Vertical stiffness for sub 3 showed decrease at the final stage. Other groups showed no large change compared to sub 3. So next, in order to consider how to keep running speed in the marathon, we regrouped using the ratio of first half time to marathon total time. 0.5 means even pace, and under 0.5 means decrease speed in that half. So group A is keep speed better. B is slightly decrease. C is the large decrease. And the number of runners and the original grouping runners is here. Most of sub-3 runners were in group A, whereas most of the sub-5, sub-6 were in groups B and C. It suggests that one of the criteria as better runner is an ability to keep speed throughout the entire marathon. These figures shows each step variables averaging by group A, B, and C. Running speed, step length, step frequency, contact time, vertical oscillation, the vertical stiffness. All variables for group A show no change throughout the race. We can see the tendency of other two groups. Step length decrease largely, but step frequency kept, contact time increased. Vertical stiffness also decreased greatly. We need to study more about the combination of step length and frequency, contact time, and vertical oscillation for each runner. In conclusion, to keep step length throughout the marathon is important to keep running speed. It might be indicated that good runners who can keep running speed tend to utilize vertical stiffness effectively to keep optimal step length and running speed during the entire marathon. If a runner has high vertical stiffness even at low speed, or a runner shows keeping vertical stiffness despite the decrease in speed, it might lead to fatigue and decrease in running speed. So I will show further research. Recently, we are trying new project to increase accuracy of running parameter estimation and estimate kinetic parameters using 3 IMUs, not only on our sacrum, but also on both feet. This is an example of absolute acceleration on foot and hip during marathon. Thin line indicate foot, thick line indicate hip, so sacrum accelerometry. So usually we can confirm large acceleration at the foot strike around here. But it seems that acceleration of the hip around the impact seems attenuate. So we can calculate the signal of acceleration into frequency domain by FFT and calculate to power spectrum density, PSD. These show the PSD at foot and hip. The large peak at low frequency is a signal of movement in running. The second peak, around 8 Hertz, is the active loading during stance. And the third peak, around 40 Hertz, is due to impact at the foot strike.
You have
it's
1
hard
minute.
to see.
1 minute.
Okay. At the hip, due to scale. So we calculate transfer function between foot and hip acceleration by the method of shorten. Positive value of transfer function indicates gain, and negative indicate attenuate or PSD of hip relative to foot. We can see large attenuation around 14 Hertz, but only at early stage of the marathon, 5K, 10K, 15K, 20K. The attenuation decrease latter half of the marathon. It might be the effect of fatigue, and also it might be related to increased injury risk. Okay, skip to the 2 slides. We can also estimate the GRF by IMU and the machine learning technique. So I finalized my talk. In order to make new technology to work well, utilize well for sport practice, we must have 3 steps. We need to develop sensor and customize. This is a hardware problem. Step 2, we develop algorithm or transfer or tune some algorithm to sports practice. This is the software problem. And the 3rd step, to apply and implement for sport practice. These are hardware and software. This is the problem of sports science. This figure shows an improvement loop of sports technique and the role of sports biomechanics presented by Dr. I. The loop consists of observation, evaluation, and diagnosis, identification of technical fault and limiting factor, select training method, and do the training. Again, after some period of training, and go through the loop. Today, I can replace new technology instead of biomechanics. New technology I introduced today could play a role for the loop. And also other new technology may replace some roles of sports science and also develop sports science itself. Thank you for your attention.
Okay. Thank you for the presentation. Where are those biomechanics people? You are here. What was he saying?
Thank you, Professor Enomoto, for good presentation. And you have stimulated our thinking about those new technologies you are talking about, especially in collaboration with those techno companies like Casio.
Casio.
Yes, and we are looking forward to use that technology. I know yourself, you wanted to come here in person to explain even with more details. Even during Under 20, you had plans to come and conduct biomechanics research during the Under 20 World Championship. It's only that we are living in difficult times of COVID and all those restrictions. And I'm sure soon, I think there was an air ticket which was spared for you. We are still, our chairman said it is still there, so we are looking forward to you coming and explaining even in finer details those technology, and so that we are able to adapt it and take advantage of them. In terms of maybe further clarification, I may want you to maybe tell us when you expect this technology to be in the market, and two, the key advantages. I've seen it got more parameters. It is able to measure more parameters than some of the accelerometers which are in the market. In particular, the actigraph accelerometer is normally considered as the standard, gold standard for measuring physical activity. What are the key differences between these new upcoming inertial measurement unit compared to that other accelerometers like actigraph? And even asking for more clarification on that, I know the actigraph and many other accelerometers, normally they are placed on the side of the hip. I don't know whether you can see me. They are normally placed at the waist on the right hand side or on the dominant hand side. But I have noted from the illustration, I think your gadget you are proposing that it be used at the waist but to the rear side of the athlete. What informed that, and what are key differences which will that bring in terms of sensing the different planes of movement? Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the asking. First, I also missed to have a chance collaborative work with you at the World Junior Championships, but I know now just competing at put the chance to get the chance World Championships competing at the Tokyo and Nairobi. So if Nairobi win, I will go to Nairobi 2025, I guess. But if Tokyo win, Francis have to come to Japan at the championships. And so the question is about the difference between actigraph and the Casio sensor. I'm not sure the precise of actigraph, but the actigraph is, I guess, the sampling frequency is not so fast. Casio sensor operated at 200 hertz, so that it's hard to store the all data for a long time. So actigraph may reduce the some important parameter only stored in the unit. Because actigraph to use for the measurement of activity. So, but the Casio sensor developed for the analysis of sport movement. So that's why is the big difference. And the Casio sensor also has the advantage, the synchronize, the Casio sensor can synchronize the, a few sensors simultaneously because the sensor use the GPS clock. So depending on, based on GPS clock, the few sensor can synchronize after the data acquisition. The position of the attach is everything is possible for the some activities. to customize. So if you have an idea to measure some movement, you can put on somewhere to evaluate the movement. Is it enough enough answer?
Okay, very good. Now you guys, you thought nobody was understanding what is going on. You can see the owners are here. Yeah, he's followed it very closely. And the only thing I saw in this is that if we in Africa don't go technology, there's going to be nothing like this is our specialty. Do you see it? That technology is going to improve speeds and Kenyan dominance is going to go down because now everybody is looking at what is the best way to optimize the running. You see now they're looking at how you are running, your position, the speed, the landing foot to ensure that your steps are the same, isn't it? And the hip rotation, all those things they're looking at. And they're using maybe the Kenyan runner as a dummy to see how they're running, and then they look at how technology can make their runner to mimic this running and become better. So you guys have to go into biomechanics now more deeply. Otherwise we are done. We're done. Okay, thank you so much, Professor, for that presentation. Please make sure that Francis comes to Tokyo to come and see what you are doing so that he can copy some of these things for us. Now the next presentation is by Lamek Bukongo. Lamek is a sports physio and a big boss with the Kenya Sports Medicine. Is it?
Yeah.
KMSK.
Kenya Sports Medicine Society of
Sports Medicine Society of Kenya. Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, go ahead.
You can share. Good afternoon. I know time is not on our side, and I'm actually going to show you some pictures. Then we are done.
Make sure it is within the time you are given.
Yeah.
Don't end before.
Okay, it's okay. You can share. Okay, it's here. My name's Lamek. As you have heard, I'm into sports physiotherapy and at the same time into sports medicine. Today I'm going to discuss generally what is the role of sports medicine in the modern era. All these things we have been discussing since morning, now we want to put them into clinical, practical. So this, what we have been listening since morning is more academic, and now we are going to the practical part. These are traits which we want to improve in terms of performance. What are we able to do for them? If you can move to the second page, just to highlight. So sports medicine is a branch of medicine which deals with prevention, management of injuries, rehabilitation, and part of it is medical emergencies, which is not covered on it. So all these things is what we want to cover. And who are these professionals who are going to take care of our treats? So most of the time people think it's the doctors. That's what the old model used to talk about. At the moment we have the family physician, the physiotherapist, the sports physician. Sports physician is different from the family physician. Family physician is someone, the doctor you always go and see. But the sports physician, this is someone who is qualified into sports medicine, like a master's, so and a bit of practice into orthopedic technology. Then there is a massage therapist, athletic trainers. I think is very common in US, which act as the same as physios here in Kenya. Then we have orthopedic surgeons, radiologists, podiatrists, guys who are taking care of our foot in case of an injury. Then there is sports psychology, and I think there was someone around. Maybe I'll engage him as time goes by. Dietitian, who was the sports nutritionist. We are lacking so much in Kenya in that bracket. Then there is an exercise physiologist. That's where I think KU needs to come in. We are producing sports science people who are very general. We want them actually to get into the exercise physiology part so that they can do a lot of testing for us. Then the last one is the coaches. We need you to be part of that, the whole of the sports medicine team, and the fitness advisors. And that's where much all of the sports science students from KU end up. So we need to work as a team so that we can be able to take care of an athlete. You can see the coach, the athletic trainer, the physio, the psychologist, all work to make sure that the athlete is well taken care of. And we move forward. This is an athlete. I think you have seen him all over. So what does it entail to take care of like the world leading try scorer? For the guy has been playing over 15 years, and up to now, actually he can step back to the field. So what does it entail to be able to take care of that kind of athlete? Okay, we can move down. I can just write on the sports which we are going to talk about as I talk about that athletes, the soccer, track and field, boxing, hockey, softball, and so many sports, all even the motor sports. The sports medicine comes in. Okay, let's move forward. So there is this a marathon. I'll be talking about what's actually happening in the sports medicine perspective. What I'm looking here when we are hosting this is a emergency medical action plan. What I'm likely to get from here is the medical emergencies like heat stroke, okay, exhaustion, dehydration, and so forth. So when I'm planning this kind of event, I need to be thinking towards that. You can move on. This is in sports, rugby. These are sprains. These are different kinds of things actually we encounter, like in contact sport, American football itself, and I imagine these guys will always come back and get back to play. Like I think Cisse is the last guy here. After that, bad injury, that's a tibia and the fib fracture. He's still playing at the top Premier League after that. So it means all the guys we have talked about up there, they were doing their work to make sure that the player can get back. So for like the picture number one, we always see it. That's nothing. That guy should actually be playing the same game, the same minute. Okay. Let's move on. These are things which also happen, like when we are doing triple chase and all that. People think people are just jumping around, but you can get a proper concussion from this and the switch off. Cindy. So we need to think about what is next in terms of the emergency action plan. Is there ambulances and all that, and how are we going to take care of concussion if it happens? I'm going to talk about it quickly. Let's move on again. If I see an athlete in a game holding that position as a sports medicine, I have to think something. These are cases where we get cardiac arrest, so we need to start thinking about that. And just to talk about cardiac arrest before we move on, you can move down. How do we handle a case when it happens? How do we do the evacuation from the field? These are the things we should be talking about because we are going to hold games here. So we need to be having preparedness in terms of doctors, physios, all the medical ambulances, catered for. Let's move again. Some time back, we lost one of our female rugby player. This was actually a case of cardiac arrest. So it also is a wake-up call that this case needs proper screening, pre-participation assessment, so that we can be able to identify what might be able to happen going forward. Let's move on. Concussion is one of the big, I've talked about it, it's very big. It's a big animal in the room, and we need more research into it. These are the signs and symptoms. They are straightforward. Then there is management. How do we manage concussion? It's very key. We have 5 steps. From the rest, after that, we do right aerobic activity and sport-specific activities, to non-contact drills, to full contact drills, to return to play. And this thing needs to be followed. Most of the time people are getting concussion and they are getting back to, and that's why I think we have lost quite some members of teams. And you need to have a minimum timeline. So most of the time is 2 weeks off and no symptoms, then we start the graduated return to play, which is here. It's very self-explanatory. In rugby, actually, we are doing you can see up there is graduated return to play. There is HI1, HI2, and HI3. So nowadays, if you suffer a concussion and the game is ongoing, you have a chance again to participate, because maybe it's an Olympic or something. So we do an HI1, which is a head injury assessment test, which is a SCAT. If you pass, we do it on our CSX app. I think Kenya Rugby, we have one. It's just a development which we worked around. If you pass that, you are able to continue playing. If you don't pass, you wait to do an HI2. If you fail it, still you will do given a chance for HI3. If you fail it, then you are concussed. Then automatically you will start the graduated return to play, and we progress you to return to play. You can move down. So this is a marathon which was done in Boston. These are things which came up. There was a bomb test. So we need to plan an emergency action plan around it and be prepared if an action like this happens, what is going to happen. Can move down. So this is from the previous slide. I'm mixing them up because that's how they are coming up, in that we have had a lot of issues, but one of the major issues in terms of cardiac arrest is hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. That's one of the reading, and I think with physical activity encouragement and all that, and the proper assessment, I think we are able to deal with this. And I think you have seen it like most African players in the Premier League who are suffering that because of there was no area detection or proper assessments. Because they get that they are professional, by the time they are signed with big teams, before that assessment has been done before. Unlike some European players who are assessed area and they are being told, this is the pathway, you can do it all, or you have to sign a consent for you to be able to participate. I can move on quickly. So emergency care systems for universal health is a must. If you are going to plan any event, which is sporting, it's number one before even you plan to do anything into a sporting activity or hosting an event. Let's move on quickly. So these, I think you guys will get the slide. You can go through on an emergency care system, how it works, what you need to plan from ambulance, from the on-field care, transportation to the hospital, care at the hospital, and who needs to take care of the athlete, and the discharge, then into the rehabilitation, and the return to training, to the return to play. So these are very good pathway. You can always have as a sports department somewhere, which can guide you through. Then let's move on. These are just minor. Just wanted to talk. This is one of my biggest areas where if you have a shoulder, knee, ankle, Achilles, okay? Those are the major injuries we are always facing, and how do we go about the rehabilitation? That's why I'm a very big fan that the sports science, the guys we are going to produce by the end of it, in terms of strength and conditioning and all that, we need them to start assisting the physios who are doing phase 1 and 2 for the acute management and all motion and the basic movement training, then basic strength and proprioception. That's what the physios can be able to offer. So we need people to start being trained in sports science, that the dynamic neuromotor strength, endurance, coordination, athletic enhancement, return to activity, and sports performance injury prevention, which is return to play, is for the sports science. And we need them to come out strongly because there is a lot of work. That's why I'm advocating for sports rehabilitation masters in KU to start, because these are very big area, very big market. Yeah, let's move on. Chain of survival, the guy was holding the chest. If you recognize, that's how, this is the standardized all over the world. Early recognition, call for help to prevent the cardiac arrest. If there is the cardiac arrest has happened, we start LCPR, and I haven't seen any AED around KU. I've been moving around. So we need to start thinking towards putting some EAD everywhere, even on the conference room. If somebody gets a heart attack here, how are we going to attack that thing? Because there are so many guys walking around the university. Then on the chain of survival, if the area CPR can start, CPR, I think the training has been done, early EAD application, and the post-resuscitation care. And if you saw some game in Europe where we have had this kind of Mwamba got a cardiac arrest, and the Elksen also got a, because of the post-resuscitation care and the emergency care which came in. That's how the guy is actually able to be recruited back in the Premier League after suffering from that terrible heart attack. Okay, just a channel for the athlete. We need to understand the channel. When somebody gets an injury, what happens until the guy is back? Okay, so you see on online, oh, this guy is missing. What's happening with Pogba? What's happening with Collins, Injera? People don't understand. Maybe this guy has got an injury, and this is this is what's happening. So when the incident happens, what happens on the incidents in terms of management? If you manage it well, the guy is likely to recover quicker. If you don't manage it well, the immediate care, the transportation, how do you transport somebody who has been hurt? It can actually prolong the time out, or actually decrease the time he's going to stay out. Emergency care when he's at the hospital, the damage control, the definitive care, and the rehabilitation process. Those are very key areas to look at. You must have, you can move on. We must do participation assessment, and I think it's being encouraged everywhere to be done, so that you get the history of the athletes, so that the care is going to be better just in case they get an injury or something. You can move on, move again. There is post-sport injuries and illness, where we are looking at breathing, external or internal, cranial, epidural, subdural. If it's the head, we need to think. That's why we are looking on concussion. Cardiac cases, where are they coming from? Musculoskeletal, we need to understand the strains, sprains, fractures, and dislocation, and how they are being managed. Respiratory, we need to talk about pneumothorax, hemothorax, fractures. These are very serious medical emergencies, and you can't be able to ignore them. That's why you have to plan. Like nowadays, you can't even start a game without proper equipped emergency with proper personnel who can do CPR. Then the medical emergencies, asthma, epilepsy, people with heat stroke, and one big I think I've encountered as a sports medicine personnel is anaphylaxis, and you don't want to have anaphylaxis around because it's a life-threatening situation. We have had it in a team, and actually it was in Olympics, and the player had to miss the whole of Olympics, and it was just from simple allergic reaction from that player. We had to do a resuscitation, even applying EAD, and is one of our top players. It's just for information we are keeping this. Then let's move down. We need to train much of our medics on how to handle like head injuries and spinal cord injuries, because these are things, if mishandled, that guy will never stand, will never sit. It's like that guy will be in a wheelchair or in bed forever. So let's take them serious, and now we are going to do the immediate care. That's why I said immediate care is very, very important in terms of your care of your athletes. You can't mismanage there, then you expect the athlete to recover quicker, and there was something which was not done wrong. Then safe movement. How do you move him from the when an injury has happened? How do we want to move that player from there to the hospital, and the care which will be taken care of? I was to play this clip. I don't know if it's working. Can you play it? It's just some few seconds. I think it has yeah. So you must have a debrief before even the game start, so that everyone is in the same page. What's going to happen, and how are you going to take care of your athlete? So it means these guys never had a conversation on what they are going to do, or how they are going to attack a case which is on site, and how they are going to transport, and which signs they are using, and all that. Then the last one is you must have a record. You can move down. You must have a record on which we need to record what happened. It's just in case we have to transfer the player to an hospital facility. Those information, they can be able to be captured. Then the last one is on care. This Collins, when he suffered a shoulder injury and he was back. These are Bankat relation. You must be able to transport Asari. Actually, the game was ongoing. Then he went for an MRI. The MRI was done. We knew that this is what it is. Surgery was done. Then we started rehabilitation immediately. And the player is again back. Then the last one is now the care post. When you have just left the player to go to the hospital, what happens beyond there, the handover management is very crucial. And that's where sometimes we have lost quite a number of players, where sometimes the surgeries go wrong. Or that's why you have to make, if you can go down, there is a decision to cut all to do a conservative management. So if somebody has suffered a meniscus or an ACL, sometimes after the MRI has been done, we have to decide, is it a surgical procedure or a conservative management? So sometimes you get some orthopedic doctors going into a surgical because maybe of the amount involved. And maybe this is a case which needed just rehabilitation and conservative management. So as the athletes and sports scientists who are here, we have to make the decisions as early as possible as the case progresses to the orthopedic doctors. Everyone leaves them to do all that. Like all my athletes, I make my decisions even before they make. When they make theirs, we need to come in order that we agree that we are doing this surgery and how long it's taking and why we are doing it. Otherwise, that's how we have been able to save the time loss for some of the key players, because their career is also very short. Because by 32, 30 people are retiring. You can't afford to be wasting 2 years again for some of these top athletes out. Then the last one is, I've already talked about the information, and the last one is emergency care at the hospital, which you can move to that slide. That's the last one. What's actually happening is, in terms of assessment, resuscitation, intervention, and monitoring within the hospital is very key. Just a quick history. We had one of our prayers. He suffered hernia. You have had a hernia before? Or you have encountered an hernia? It's very painful, and a decision needs to be made if the surgical procedure is going to be done there and there, or you have to wait for their relative also to decide. So you call their wife, this guy is okay, I'm trying to manage ABCD, then you guys make the decision that the guy is doing surgery to save ABCD, which as in the sports medicine world you feel that is necessary. So this emergency care at the hospital is also very crucial, and most of the time we leave it for them to do that. We don't even follow up. It's very crucial actually to follow up what's happening on the other side, because at the end of it, after it has been done, it will come back to you. Then again, maybe you are stuck with your treat. Remember, if you are working in a high-pressured environment, like you are working for Manchester United, for Arsenal, everyone is on the sports medicine team. When am I getting Rooney back? What happened? And all those scenarios, you can't tell them the orthopedic surgeon did a wrong thing. It's from inside where you guys made a wrong decision. And with that, I can welcome some questions.
Thank you. Thank you, Lamek. That was a good presentation. And I think you designed your PowerPoint for the evening. Just watching pictures. That was very good. Yeah. You'll have to tell us about Kenya.
Yeah,
Kenya
after
sports,
the questions, maybe I can talk about it.
Yes.
Thank you, Lamek, for your very informative and scaring pictures. But as we all know, injury is inevitable in sport. So my question is, because all these issues tackle something to do with safeguarding and the rights of athletes. So what is the practice like, especially in Kenya? What are you doing in that association that you said to ensure that all this happens correctly, so that we don't see what we are seeing there? Because I actually know a few people who have quit sport because of injury. So what are you doing in the sports medical team to ensure we've safeguarded these athletes in sport in the area of injury prevention and rehab?
Yeah, there's another question there.
Ngugi.
To me, it's at a very advanced level. You know, we are seeing ambulances and good stretchers and people well kitted, you know, people who are ready to, and trained. They are trained people. Now let's go to the villages. You know, rural, where a whole village is in the football pitch and some accident happens. I believe you have witnessed what happens. Everybody, the spectators run there. You know, they go to the actual scene of injury. And you have like 100 doctors, you know, giving different, you know, others are carrying them on the shoulders. I think it is also important that you talk to us or you inform us about triage, because most people have died. I lost an athlete at JKUAT one time during cross country because of simple mismanagement. Triage here is very important for us to know, because KU might have all these things, but I'm organizing an event deep in at the river, you know, down there where the Nairobi River water passes, you know that water, the way it looks like. And I need to do a lot of first aid and so on. I think if we can localize it really deep, because that time you're trying to control a crowd, you have pickpockets around, you have, you name it. That is my take.
Thank you. Maybe if I can respond to the two. For the first one, in what role are we working on? We have come up, actually we are the first guys in terms of sports medicine, physios who are into sports scientists, the guys I know. We have come up with the first one, Sports Medicine Society of Kenya, where we have brought in sports scientists, physios, orthopedic surgeons. These are top guys, and I think Prof. Bukala is actually our vice president at the Sports Medicine Society, where I'm the treasurer. And we have top doctors who are doing our operations, who are part of the president, and we are running the whole thing. We have come up with policies, and actually we have disseminated those policies to like Kenya Rugby, FKF, and athletics, and actually they have started implementing them. So that we have a channel in a way, if an injury happens within the football, they are able to refer and to the right people, and they are able to get proper support. And we have a very big psych on that, and it's really working, and we want to build it up. And that's why, on that note, Prof is encouraging people to come in and be members. I know some doctors already have joined who are into sports science, physical activity, and also in recreation management. I've already people on board, and we are doing some training. Actually, we are conducting 2 conferences nearly every year, and we have doctors from USA, South Africa, England, and so forth, and I think maybe 1 or 2 guys have been able to attend, and we want to build that platform more and more. On the second one, where in terms of what are we able to localize on what's happening here in Kenya, what we have come up actually from the policy is to make sure that anything going to happen, like if it's rugby, the federation is going to be in charge for anything all the way happening all the way down there. And what we are doing is to train medics. Like right now at the top level, you can't be able to be a sports physio in a national team like playing rugby without advanced immediate care in rugby. That's like the level 4. So we are starting level 1s for all the clubs, the coaches, okay, in the rugby fraternity within Kenya, and everyone else doing level 1 first aid in rugby. Then we are progressing the medics all the way until we get the guys who are in the top level for the advanced. And that's the same thing we have also tried to introduce in football. And actually it's working well, that and also we have given the risks that maybe even if it's any game, as long as it's under football or rugby, it can't start without some checklist being done, from ambulance, qualified PCR, available, AED, and all those kind of things. And I know it's going to take a bit of time for those things to be implemented, but there is somewhere where we have started, and I know we are taking it with the county devolution thing coming up. I think it will trickle down.
Thank you, Doctor, for your most informative presentation. I have a question as a professional basketball player who tore his ACL twice. I wanted to ask, during the rehab process, how much does your mentality can have a negative effect on your rehab? Because I remember during my rehab, I used to have a consistent pain in my knee, and doctors would always tell me, no, it's only your mind, it's in your mind. Your mind is trying to convince you that you're feeling a pain in your knee, while in fact, after multiple checkups, there's nothing physically in my knee. So how big of a factor does your mentality have to do in this equation during your rehab?
So I think why we get it wrong most of the time, and sometimes people get a bit of pain where they are not supposed to have the pain, is because all of the people who are the physios, all the trainers, all the orthopedic surgeons who are going through the surgical procedure, they don't undergo through the steps of rehabilitation. If you miss any, you might end up that you have tendinitis. And most of the clients I have is that the ACL or the meniscus has healed, but because you missed proprioception, some bit of strength training like isometric for the quad, then you get a lot of tendinitis, tendinopathy, and that's what actually most of the people suffer from. The pain you always feel is not actually related to the physical ACL, it's because of a lot of imbalance which is around it, which was missed. So for me, range of motion, if I get it, is the only time I can move to proprioception and the strength training into isometric. So much of the people just jump those and then they get the complications for tendinitis, tendinopathy and so forth. So if we can follow that, and that's why I'm encouraging that we can have sports scientists coming in to do that part of stage 3, phase 3, 4 and 5, which physios don't do properly unless you are a sports qualified sports physiotherapist or an athletic trainer. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Lamek. How many of you are going to join Kenya the society? How many? The cost is so cheap and they train twice a year. Very nice courses, very nice, specific courses. Sometimes they just train on maybe just the hand, injuries of the hand. And then by the time you leave there, you know what happens with your hand or your leg. So join so that we are many sports scientists to help the physios at the levels he's talking about. Okay? Did you come with your book so that you can start collecting? Okay. Yeah, we are also lobbying actually to have as many people. Specifically, we have many medical people, but we don't have sports scientists, many. Even sports managers, we have to. We also want them in. Okay, so let's invite Cynthia Mumbo to talk to us about sports as a revenue generator for academic institutions. But let's give a hand of clap for Lamek. Thank you. Good job.
I say good evening. I was going to say good afternoon. I realize it's evening. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for the invitation for me to speak. I now know where I saw you. When you said you're a basketball player, I believe we have passed each other somewhere. I met him outside and I say, where are you from? He said, Egypt. I said, I know, I've seen some Egypt basketballers. He didn't mention that he's a basketballer out there, but now that he's mentioned it, I understand. My name is Cynthia Mumbo. I am the founder and CEO of Sports Connect Africa. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here with you. I am a sports marketing, sports operations, sports events. I was told not to be afraid to say expert. So I'm very passionate about the game of basketball. Last year I was first woman in East and Central Africa to run for president. I lost just by 12 votes, so I think I'll win next time. I'm very honored to be here. So today I'll talk about the business of sport, and my colleague Mike is here, is going to speak about that as well, but I'm going to focus much more on commercialization of university sport for institutional development. So we can start on our presentation. Well, that's my profile. It's small, so you'll and it's a little long. I don't want to say too much. I am a fellow of Babson College. I have studied entrepreneurship. I have a business diploma from KU, actually. I am CIM certified, so I studied marketing at the Chartered Institute of Marketing. So I've done lots of courses. Interestingly, I do not have a full degree. But I am the only woman in Africa, actually, who is certified to manage federations from FIBA Academy. So I am a first in many. I'm the first African woman to receive the Leader in Sports Business top 30 under 40. So it's the CV is not too long for a young lady, but it's long enough, I think. So let's jump into the presentation. I still consider myself young. Are we good? Great. So I run a company called Sports Connect Africa. I'm very passionate about our continent and who we are. We create integrated engagement platforms that connect, inspire, and empower sports stakeholders in Africa. We help sports brands and organizations develop their commercial value through our unique marketing insights, experiences, and opportunities across various platforms. Our services include brand partnerships, promotional campaigns, event management, sports operations, activations, sponsorships, endorsements, media relations, and cause-related programs. So currently we're working on an interesting idea we're calling Adopt a Court. The idea is very simple. We're partnering with different organizations and friends of basketball to put just 1 or 2 basketball boards and rims in schools. And we believe that that way we'll be able to get young people to play the game of basketball, but also empower and develop the talent at the young level. We've worked with several organizations: Olympique Lyonnais, the NBA, Crystal Palace, FIFA, Sauti Sol. Sauti Sol are very strong. Sauti Ku Foundation in Kogelo, and the Ghana Revenue Authority. Currently, we're also working with the Kenya Academy of Sports. So, we move to the next slide. I love money, and I love the story of money and sports. How many of us watch football, soccer? How many of us watch local soccer? The hands have reduced. And I'll tell you why I'm asking that question. How many of us know Gor Mahia? How many of us know Arsenal? Everyone. How many of us know Mike's rugby team, Homeboys? That's because we're all sports people here. No, Mike, you're doing a good job. People know your team. The value of sports business, the global value of sports, is $501 billion. I'll jump to one that is very familiar. The NCAA revenue in 2021 was $1.16 billion. We have over 200 universities and colleges, probably more, across Africa. How many years? This is our 10th year of hosting the All Africa University Games. What's the value of the University Games? Well, we'll get to that. How many people are participating in this event? Is it about 4,000? 2,000. Okay, so I bumped it up a little bit. And spectators, do we know? So I'm raising questions that I think as universities we should be answering these questions. If we went to the IT space, we have figures, don't we? We have the value of IT in Africa, in Kenya. So those questions are questions I think we should be able to answer when we have our next session. So the challenge, and a big one, is resource mobilization for institutions of higher learning. There's strained resources. How do universities manage the whole idea of resource mobilization? And the question for me, and I think for us in this room, would be what role does sports play in resource mobilization for academic institutions? I think that question can be answered very comfortably in the US context of the NCAA, But across Africa, I don't think, maybe apart from South Africa, I'm not very sure about Northern Africa universities if they measure this. But Southern Africa, I know that Stellenbosch is very strong on this. But within our framework, within East and Central Africa, West Africa, this is a conversation that we have no figures, we have no numbers. We play sports because we love sports. We have figures when it comes. We have research. I've seen heavy research when it comes to the activity-based, when it comes to the technical. But then when it comes to the business of sports, we don't have, enough data. So I'll ask lots of questions. What's the value of sports business in Africa? Do we know? I'm giving guys, opportunities for us to write theses. I like, there's great opportunity for us. What's the commercial value of university sports business in Africa? I asked this question before. What's the value of university games and affiliated games, of the university games? What are the commercial opportunities present for institutions of higher learning? What aspects of sports business should we measure? What are the revenue streams for university sports? What are the key areas of investment for universities? I've seen KU, since I left a few years ago, has done a tremendous job. I noticed that we have a running track, I think the only university that has one. I'm not sure if there's any other institution that has one of that standard. We should know how many have, those are conversations that we should be having. What are the key areas, who are the key stakeholders of sports in university games? Very, very critical. If ever you're going to speak about business, you need to know who the key stakeholders are. And in anything, I believe. And who are the consumers of sports in the university games context? We are all consumers of international football, international rugby, our Kenya rugby team, our athletics. We know all of that. But what do we know? Who consumes? If we went outside today, I ask a lot of questions because I think we don't have answers as we speak. But I ask, if we went out to the street in KU today and asked a random person, not anyone related with the games going on, do you know any player in your basketball team? Do you think we'd get an answer? Do you know where to get information about the basketball team? Would you be interested in buying a shirt because it represents the basketball team? Would you be interested in coming for a game if you had a great experience? We don't ask these questions. We come, we play, and we have a great experience for athletes and for the technical team and everybody else. But then that's most likely where it ends. So I'll represent what we call the golden triangle in sports. And for sports to work, for sports to commercialize, we have this triangle and it needs to work. And so, of course, the most critical aspect of sports, of the triangle, is the sport itself. So if our sports is not well organized, we don't understand the technical aspects, the triangle is useless. So, we have to have an organized, well-organized sport. And this is the core product. This is, the core of everything that we would be selling. When you have organized sports, naturally something happens. The media says, we'd like to work with you because we see you have something exciting. You have people coming to your games. Can we, and even you as a sports owner, as a sports property owner, you say, can we sell this to more, can we sell this experience to more people? And so media becomes a key player. Do you know how many people watch the World Cup opening ceremony or the Olympics opening ceremony? The World Cup is about 3 billion people. Do we know how many people are today coming to watch the games? I hope I'm making us think. I hope I'm making us think, because this is very exciting. It's a whole new space for us to research and to, create solutions for. So when the media comes in, brands say, hey, there's something good happening there. There's what we call bums on seats, and there's eyes, watching this game. Can I be involved? But more so because your sport is organized, you go and say, look, I have 5 million people watching my game every weekend. Do you think your brand, our values work? Can we work together and have your brand on our shirt? In association, not them coming and taking over, because it happens often. Say, come, you can be associated with our brand, which is the Africa Games that we have built. It's a strong brand. You can be associated with us. And what value proposition would we be giving the sponsors? But this is not the full, space. There's so many different angles that are missing from that triangle. So I'll move it to something close to, if you can move to the next slide. We'll move it to sort of a diamond, if I could say. Please excuse the word league in between there. I tried to figure out how to change it, but it's a picture I had created a long time ago, so I couldn't change that. Excuse me for that. I love this diagram because it shows us really the flow of money within sports. So at the center you have, and this example is basketball. It could be football, it could be judo, it could be anything. But because my life's purpose is to build basketball in Kenya, so I'll use basketball. So you have the professional basketball league, and that's right at the center. That's the core. Who are the key players? You have the teams, right? Can you see? You can see clearly? So you have the teams. If the league is going well, if it's well organized, then what happens? You have media, traditional, and of course today we have digital media. So whether it's YouTube or TikTok now, it could be any of those media. So you have media. The media pay you for the right to showcase your game. Now, many times media comes to you because us as people who run sports, we don't know, and they tell you, pay and I will show you your games. It shouldn't be that way. You have content. They pay for any other content, right, Mike? They pay for any other content. Media pays for Mexican soaps. You will never watch those Mexican soaps for free. But with our content, sports content, because they know that we don't know, and we honestly don't know, we don't even know our value. If we went to TV today and said, I want us to work together and have a partnership, I'd like to have the Africa Games on Pan-African TV, on SuperSport. How would you quantify your value? What would you tell SuperSport? My value is A, B, C, D. Interesting questions. So let's go back to the slide. And so you have the broadcaster pays you for rights, but you must be able to deliver, right? The media make money from different advertisers. So I think if you watch SuperSport and you watch the English Premier League going on, whenever there's a break, it's amazing, because I think when there's a strong game, like let's say Man U and Arsenal or Liverpool and Man City or whatever, nowadays you have 6 or 7 adverts of what do you call these companies? Betting companies. That revenue doesn't come to the sports. It goes to the media partner, right? And so it's important for us to know these things and understanding the value of money. Now, something is happening in the world. There's a bit of a change when it comes to the media conversation. FIFA just launched FIFA TV. And they have an app now where they're sending all their content. So we are still, we're still a little bit stuck where we're showing our content on traditional media. At the global level, the rights owners are moving towards direct relaying of their sport. So if if you're watching, say, rugby, you can now be able to watch rugby. I think some games can be watched on YouTube. So it's important for us to know. I mean, this is wide. I don't think we can cover everything in this conversation today, but it's important for us to be able to understand that there's a whole flow of money and who the key stakeholders are. The players. Once there's a sponsor, brand sponsors, what happens? The league makes money. That money trickles down to teams, or as it should. It should trickle down to teams. I don't think it does in our case in many spaces, but it should trickle down to teams. What happens? The teams pay salaries, allowances, profits, back to the team, and fees. So the players, team players, make the key stakeholders in this space is the players, the team owners. In our case, and mostly in Africa, and in the context of, I would say, the university games, in the context of our leagues, apart from maybe football and partly, I think, rugby, most teams are either owned by corporates or are owned by or are community clubs. And so we've been unable to move ourselves into that proper commercial space because of how our ownership structure, right? So you have business managers, professional team coaches, players, agents. I mean, there's a whole list. Can you show the slide? There's a whole list of stakeholders within this space. I say this every day wherever I can have an opportunity to say it. I think I said it on Twitter today earlier, because there's a picture there of Gor Mahia players. They played yesterday with AFC Leopards. It's the biggest game. And Gor Mahia, I believe, won, my team. And I know it was 1-1. I have to speak well. But you know what happened? Those players were given 248 shillings. That's less than $2. That's the biggest team. Okay, Prof, I'm sorry, I know you're an FC fan, so I cannot talk about your team. But that's the biggest team in terms of brand recognition in East and Central Africa, maybe apart from one team in Congo. And now some teams in Simba, I think, is doing a good job, and Yanga are doing a good job. But that's the most recognizable team in Kenya. And our players got 248 shillings. Why am I saying this? The two most critical stakeholders when we are thinking of commercializing sports, there are only two. It's the athlete and the fan. I'll tell you why. If we go outside and watch the games that are going on now, there are two key people: the guys who come to watch and the guys who are playing. If we went to the estate, when we were young, I remember when we were playing football or we were racing against each other, there was always a group of guys who could never run, who could never play football, but they were always cheering those guys. And that is at the nucleus of what we consider sports. Right at the, and I think I saw some of the presentations that we had talking about how in Cameroon, they support each other. It's the nucleus that you have the players at any given context, and there are those guys who come and cheer them. So this is what has progressed to what we have in the commercial context today. I don't know, are we okay with the presentation? Can you guys, oh, there you go. Please move to the next slide. This slide for me is important because of the fan. Everything we do in sports is, at the commercial level, is to make money in some way, whether it's going to players, whether it's going to the owners, whether it's going to broadcaster. But if we're not creating amazing experiences for the fan, they're never going to pay, because they are the core. I'm never going to buy a shirt if I don't like the experience. I can see my good friend Kiso is here. Kiso, you're just from the Basketball Africa League. How was the experience? Amazing. It was amazing, wasn't it? The Basketball Africa League had players from all over Africa, and Rwandese were paying money. I know that the highest ticket was not necessarily expensive, but because the they created value behind that ticket. The highest ticket was about 2,750 shillings. But I know that if I'm paying 2,750 shillings, it's about $27. I am going to sit at the, I'm going to sit at the front side, of the court side. I'm going to be able to go into the VIP spaces. In Nairobi, if we are to hold Basketball Africa League, I can assure you, if you put the main tickets at 20,000, Kenyans will pay. Yes. It's because of the experience. But Kenyans pay 15,000, 20,000 shillings every week, to, Mike can attest, to go and watch musicians who come from Nigeria. Am I lying? It's true. We hear, someone who was here the other day, what's the difference between that experience and the sports experience, the football experience? When I go for a night out with friends to this musician, I know I'm going to get value for my money. So do we create experiences that provide value for money for the fan? So everything is emphasized, should be an emphasis on fan engagement. And of course, I mentioned the players earning 248 shillings. The reason why any fan goes to watch any game is because of the guys on the pitch. They really like to emulate the guys on the pitch. If today I asked, right now I'll ask, we all know Messi, right? We know Messi? We know Ronaldo. We know Beckham. He hasn't played for almost 10 years. But we know Beckham, right? Why? Because there's a lifestyle they portray. We know LeBron. There's a lifestyle they portray, but that's very deliberate from the owners of the property to make sure that the stars are truly the stars. And so if we don't create stars from our sporting environment, then it becomes difficult to be able to convince someone to, remove their hard-earned money to say, I'm coming for a football experience. Diehards will do it. But if we want to get to that commercial space for sports, it's going to be tricky. Please move to the next slide. It's a bit heavy, but you might not be able to see it, so I'll just take you through it very quickly, because I think this is something that I hope everyone can have a copy of this and go through this. Commercialization of sports is a process. It's like any other, it's like any other business. You figure out your value proposition, which is the first step. Figure out your competitive advantage. Figure out what is the market opportunity and what is the addressable market, what is our clear product. What's the product when it comes to sports? I like to interact. What's the product? I like asking questions. What's the product? The athlete? Mm-hmm. What other product is there when it comes to sports? Actually, that's what it is. It's the experience. And so if you're a property owner, you want to be able to create an experience that's worth paying for. So what is the market opportunity? I didn't mention something up at the top. I think I'm in a room with brilliant people. We have, what's the percentage of Africa under 65, under 35 years old? 65%. I said it right. 65% of Africa is under 35. Where do we find them? Many of them are either in college or working out there. But where do we really find them? On their phones. Right? What do they enjoy? Socializing, sports. Socializing and sports. So, great opportunity. As a university, or as the university games, how then do we leverage on this great statistic so that we are creating experiences for our university going, our communities, and I'll go into a slide that will explain that a little bit more. But how do we, this is a great market opportunity. You have 65% of Africa under the age of 35. That's our direct market as universities, right? So, food for thought. I'll not focus so much on the no's, but if you have yes on stage 1, stage 2, and stage 3, then you go into the implementation phase, which is, what is your commercial strategy? Then you go into your proprietary protection, and this is an area I'm very passionate about, IP rights. If I have, today we have what's the official name of the tournament that's going on this week? It's the All Africa, 10th All Africa, Fasu Games. So that's our propriety. If somebody is making t-shirts in the middle of Nairobi town saying I'm making t-shirts for Fasu, and you will find that there's someone making t-shirts and selling t-shirts. But because maybe we have it protected, but maybe we don't have it protected, then we don't know. Kenyatta University is protected as a brand, right? Kenyatta University is protected, the IP. But then how is Kenyatta University leveraging on sports to develop the KU brand? Of course, then there's commercial implementation and licensing and revenue, so you go out and sell. Just a few. I'm almost done. So key ingredients for success. I'll not speak too much on this. I've talked about this. Creating experiences that fans, students, alumni, parents, communities will pay for. Creating teams that fans will do everything to associate with and eventually buy any related items and experiences. I'm not going to belabor on this, but the NCAA, how do they generate revenue? Television, marketing fees, championship games, investments, facilities and equipment, sales and services. And this money goes back to the universities. It goes to the NCAA, and the NCAA then cascades downwards and goes to the universities. The two biggest sports is, of course, the football, American football. I don't know why they call it football, but American football and basketball. So maybe if you can show the next slide, the NCAA Gallery. I'd just like to talk briefly about this. This is, again, around basketball, and you can see a Molten ball there. That's a volleyball. They have a partnership with Molten, something close to what the NBA has. Molten pays them, by the way, for this. And that, yes, Molten pays them and provides balls, because what happens is anybody else who wants to play volleyball is then going to look for an NCAA certified, Molten certified ball. I talked about creating stars. This is the Kentucky University team right at the bottom there. That's the University of Kentucky team that was co-opted this season. University of Kentucky are crazy about basketball, and so is UCLA. They have a 50,000-seater stadium, if I'm not wrong, 50 or 60,000-seater stadium. And the community around Lexington pays consistently to go and watch those games. So, yes, you can't at Kentucky. You cannot. So, as KU, we have a community of how many people? How many students do we have? 70,000. What if we were playing our university games, and guys just paid 100 bob for 3 months or 4 months or 5 months every weekend? You had 10,000 or 15,000. Is that a revenue opportunity? So I'm challenging us. Then just at the top there, this is, just go back to that slide. We're talking about how they relay their information. So right at the top there, you have digital platforms where you can be able to access the games. So I've put a link on this slide on NCAA and how the NCAA works. It's crazy. Couldn't be able to speak about that. So I'm going to my last two slides. Advantages of commercialization: greater revenue, of course, media involvement. It's very great to market institutions. Ownership and participation. If I'm an alumni, I want to be involved, because if I'm from KU and KU have some really nice jerseys, I want to be involved. I want to come and watch the team. Of course, participation is increased. Of course, there are some disadvantages. Negative press. Athletes may promote, products that they don't like, or they may be pushed to promote products that they are not necessarily into. Of course, there's some vices connected. Likelihood of officials and athletes cheating will increase if we don't have proper governance structures. And some sports get less investment than others, especially women's sports. With that, I'll come to the end of my presentation, and I'll ask you to get in touch.
I want to propose that we ask Mike to make his presentation, and then, because they are tied together, we can be able to ask questions that go across. Is that okay?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Yes. Well done, Cynthia. Good presentation.
Thank you, Cynthia. Good evening, everyone. Or is it good night? It's always dangerous to speak after a lady, always. So actually, we share quite a bit in terms of our presentations. So I'll quickly run through mine, and because a lot of the points are very similar. I was going to talk about the business of sports. I was not sure she was coming, so I kind of like put something very quick, and I can see some of the elements I was going to discuss have been shared already. But so my name is Mike Rabah. I'm a very keen supporter of Kenyatta University. I've been with KU since I was in university. We used to do a lot of interesting things in this university when I was here many years ago. And also, the very key partners when we hosted this World Under-20 Championships, which was held last year in August. I was the CEO of that event, actually. So we were meant to hold the games or host the athletes at KU, but because of COVID, they had to get them to different locations just to disenfranchise the risk of having athletes in one village. And those are some of the things I think that we have to take into account when you're hosting big events of that nature. So I run a company called Homeboys Entertainment, which was founded in 1995. Purely as an entertainment unit. We started by DJing at parties and have grown into be one big institution in media and sports management. So, so we call ourselves we're the consumer engagement component that fits the gap between clients, brands, and institutions. So as you can see on the slide, founded 25 years ago as a DJ agency. Over the years, we've evolved into a full-scale capacity and experience company with a big foundation on music and not transiting into sports, just because we've seen that's where the wave is moving to. And I'm glad to say last year, next slide, we're the first and only entertainment business to be listed in the Nairobi Securities Exchange, first company to be in the NSE, which for us is a big milestone in a company of this nature, right? And which brings to the point of why, for us, entertainment, especially sports, has become a business. And just during this transition from a public limited company to a public listed company, we have also acquired partners across different facets of the world just to build capacity internally. And as Cynthia has mentioned, a lot of the elements we lack in terms of growing businesses in this country is capacity. We're obviously a few years behind most of the revered players in sports and entertainment, music especially, and realize that there's a very big gap between us and them. So how do you bridge that gap? The only way to bridge a gap like that is to form partnerships. So we've got to form partnerships with some of the biggest agencies worldwide, and they're very happy to come to partner with us just for the mere fact that they've seen that Africa is indeed the next frontier. So I'll quickly go into the next slide because of time. Just for us, what is sports business? Yeah, so for us, the business is anything that can generate revenue, fans, and loyalty. Politics is also business, right? It does all three. And so for us, so the ways of using sports as a business to actually generate revenues, and one of those areas could be across, obviously mentioned by Cynthia here, is sponsoring teams, managing athletes, selling TV rights, putting on huge events, marketing to fans. I think an event like this one being held from the Fusa Games, for me is a big opportunity for us to actually, one, put KU on the map, put Kenya on the map as a venue where you can host huge activities, host athletes, and the amenities to make sure that we can bring experiences to consumers. And like Cynthia kept on saying, it's experience, experience, experience. So we came into this partnership with KU. We signed a contract with KU last week. So we're going to offer them quite substantial amount of partnership and sponsorship in terms of making the events a bit more colorful and more vibrant, in the hope that that's going to bring in more sponsors who will come on board and support with financial gain or whatever ways they can support the event. And Cynthia mentioned that yes, the sports industry is growing at a very fast rate, and there's almost I think we're talking about over 300 billion expected growth in the next 5 years. $300 billion. I don't know where Kenya fits in that equation, Cynthia. Yeah, but if we were to just get 2% of that, as Kenya in Africa it would be an amazing input for sports in this country. Areas under sports business, I'd say again, just to reiterate what Cynthia mentioned, there's sponsorship, marketing, athlete management, broadcast, legal, licensing, merchandising, creative design, management, finance, comms, research, hospitality. It's just an endless list of spaces you can play in to benefit from the sports ecosystem. So not everyone can be an athlete, all right? But we can be the vehicle that drives, the engine that drives that whole industry. It's an industry like agriculture. So we have to look at it from that perspective to make sure that we can actually benefit from it. So I've got a lot of colleagues who have failed as athletes, but have succeeded in other ways. I was an athlete, but I could not make the school team. But I was the #1 fan. Yeah. So just from that, so my business began. I started entertaining the fans by being the #1 fan, and started my business DJing at parties after the big games, and that's how the business kicked off. So before I knew it, when I was in university, I was employing 20 people and all my classmates, but I was paying them a salary because I could do events around sports, which again was just accidental, but became a very lucrative business for us, right? So again, just to quickly run through the areas that we think the categories of sports that you can actually commercialize as rights, branding, agencies, media. I'll run through this because I think Cynthia has spoken about all these. And again, the different areas of intersection between sports and business, where as a career you can be an athlete manager, you can be creative, you can be a lawyer, you could be a LAMEC, you could be a physiologist, you can be a journalist. There are many, very many areas we can actually dwell in. And then sports has a very big advertising component. We have to bring fans to the stadium. How do you make that work? So how do you create exciting ways to get fans to come to the stadium? And she says bums on seats. How do you get that to happen? There's a big element of promotions. The betting companies are big on sports. They use sports as a tool. Without sports, there's no betting. So betting companies also have a lot of revenue streams around the sports, which is not being discussed. But again, bookmakers are looking for avenues to get content consistently. That's a big revenue stream for sports, which I think is not being utilized here as well. Hospitality. I think just by hosting the under 20 games here in 2021, we booked up 13 hotels. We booked up 3,000 rooms of all the top 5-star hotels in Nairobi. 3,000 rooms, paying on average $150 per room per night for 2 weeks. You can imagine how much of that went into the hotels just by hosting an event of this magnitude. And that was being paid for by the athletes themselves, not even us. So you can imagine that we took up hotels that were about to shut down because of COVID and brought them back to life. Again, wellness and fitness, there's a big element there. And again, Lama can confirm this. There's a lot of supplementation that's required. There's gyms, there's health clubs that are actually coming up, specialists in certain areas that I think if we commercialize these, could totally change the face of sports in this country. And then there's obviously the broadcast and journalism that comes around the sports. I mean, just right now you can have a full 10 hours of sports content. Yeah, if you watch Super Sports, Sky Sports, all they do is just sports, and that's content 24/7, the whole day, the whole night, the whole year round. That's a lot of revenue coming in through that. The skills required for sports and businesses, some of the skills are sales, creative thinking. Again, to get bums on seats, you have to find clever ways to get fans in there. To create excitement, to create affinity for the product. What you need to do to make sure that my fans want to come to my games. And like Cynthia said, how do you pay $200 for a game? We do that in music. It's very easy. I bring a big artist, big persona, and people pay $100 easily without thinking twice. But getting guys to go watch a gore game and pay even 100 shillings, $1 is a pain. So how do you turn that around? Because the same guys who paid $100 the day before, the same guys who can pay another $100 for a Gor Mahia AFC game, right? And now what you mentioned, Cynthia, this afternoon has really surprised me that the players took home $2.50. I'm just wondering how is that even possible? It's ridiculous. In fact, it's painful. It's laughable, you know. something you have to take into account, because there's no way you're going to create heroes if people are being paid that kind of remuneration. You can't become a superstar. But sports is about perception. You know, it's about stardom. Yeah, it's Hollywood. So we have to make our athletes those heroes that they deserve to be. But with those kind of remuneration models, it's never going to work. I'll quickly run into, again, challenges facing the sports. The challenges facing sports business in Kenya, one I think is cultural view of sports. Culturally, sports is considered as a pastime in Africa. It's not a co-competent business, it's a pastime. I think just like music, when I was telling my folks not to be a DJ, they told me you must be crazy. Yeah, it's the same way telling your athlete, your folks want to be an athlete, they'll be like, no, it'll never work. So I think for us, culturally, we view sports as an activity for those who fail in other core competencies. And it seems to have no end goal at all. Yeah. Secondly is the structure. The structure does not exist per se. So we have athletes, we've got fans, but there's nothing connecting the two. Actually, we've got athletes, fans, and sponsors. Those systems are very, very weak if they exist in the first place. So how do you ensure that we can build stronger systems around that? And third, and sadly, is corruption. Money can get into a sport, but doesn't get to the right people. So in that way, you find that even the sponsors tend to shy away now, saying, hang on, we can't support this game because then we'll put money in, but it won't get to serve its purpose. So we'll back away and use the money somewhere else. So that has also been a big challenge for us is for sponsor business in Kenya. One thing we have to do in terms of just changing perceptions is using media. Media plays a very strong role in creating perceptions. So we need to get media engaged more regularly. Media has got to be rewarded, sadly, but they play a role in creating perceptions and creating stars. So that's a big element of sports that we need to help reforge this perception of our athletes. If you look at another area where there's not enough growth is financial investment. So right now it's only the betting companies putting a lot of money behind it, but the betting companies have direct benefit from that. So how do you bring in other non-essential providers to come and support sports where there's a long-term investment, not immediate? So besides betting companies, how do I get a beer brand, a soft beverage brand to come on board? Yeah, where it's not related directly to a sale at the end of the game. No. So there has to be a bigger vision around that. So we have to start finding ways to coerce non-direct, I think, benefactors into the sports industry. And again, thirdly, structure. Lamak is doing a lot of work in his clinic, but you find that possibly there's probably maybe 2 of him in the whole country. All right, so you've got athletes who are getting injured, have nowhere to turn to, and again, falling out of the sports because there's really no structure to help support, maintain an athlete. I mean, you've seen instances where in the NFL, a player can have a broken rib and halftime can be fixed and goes back to play the next half. You know, they quickly do patch-ups and fix it later. So there's a lot of support in that area where the player welfare is key, and the player is king. So we need to find ways also to ensure that our players, our athletes, have a longer shelf life. Now this is more about how we as Homeboys are trying to now take a leading role in that space. So for us, actually having been very, very strong in the event management element, but around music events, we've got a lot of experience in dealing with masses, in communicating, in feeding seats and around music events. But we're now moving transgressing slowly into sports. And I think just the sheer fact that COVID had a big effect on our business, big time. We realized that what was taking place was sports and not the music events. So we actually had a deliberate effort to move our emphasis around the sports business. So so capacity-wise, we have built a very strong capacity in media production. Again, for us, it's how do you find ways to create revenue streams, and one thing is going to be content. So yeah, there is a joy in watching a basketball game, a stadium with about 1,000 people. But we know there's another 50,000 who want to watch the games out there. How do you make sure that game is made available to those 50,000 people who are not within the arena? And you can't really, again, we don't have enough arenas to hold huge events in this country that are not privately owned. So you have to find ways to get other additional eyeballs to actually be able to partake of some of these activities that you spend so much time putting together. So we actually built a very strong capacity in media production. So we've got amazing studios we've put in place, and that's very soon. I think from the later half quarter of this year, you'll see a lot of local productions coming through. So again, we also have built our capacity on the print media. We've got capacity in digital media, capacity in social media, and broadcast media. So we've got teams purposely put in place now to start showcasing and propagating what we're presenting to the public out there. I'll skip that. So again, just internally we have capacity. We have a lot of capacity in terms of going out there and doing outreach. So we have roadshow vehicles. We have platforms where we can communicate and sell activities and promote them. So we also right now that's being used heavily on with politicians, which I think for us is another revenue stream. But once politics is done, we now move this into sports. So we're also studios and monitoring centers. We're actually doing social media monitoring of our events, and we've got very strong social media tools that we're now using to propagate or sell or package some of the events we're producing. We also have very strong sponsorship relationships now with some of the key partners. Just like this, all based on the historical strides we've made over the last 20 years. So we've built very strong partnerships with corporate brands and a lot of trust. And that will run me through next to what we are doing with these partners. And then we've also now moved into literally owning on our own products. So we have started a rugby club that we own purposely. And the essence of this rugby club was to look at it and say, fine, how do you curate an experience around a team? How do you own the team and make it work the way you think it should work? Because now owning the team, we can now experiment and see, fine, what works. Again, not every solution fits across each culture. So what works in America might not work here. So we're trying to understand what works here, what makes it work. But once you own your own national team, then you're able to now see, find ways that can resonate with the local consumers. So I'm just glad to say that Lamek can attest to this. Of the 15 players playing in London last week, about 5 are from Homeboys RFC, national team. All right. So we have a program that we've seen is working, and we're just thinking that now if that program can be actually emulated across different disciplines and different teams, then you find that it'll be easier for us now to start generating athletes at a very high caliber. But having 5 out of 15 from one team, I think for us has been a big achievement, which means there's something we're doing right. And obviously Lamek is also our personal physio, so he deals with our players personally himself. And you can see that the level of injuries that they're going through is nowhere near compared to the other players. So I think what we need to also look at is how do you have a uniform way of coaching, so that each coach that is training different teams, say for the national team, has a similar structure. We now find that the coaches are coaching one way, a different way, so by the time we put the national team together, they're playing a different sport. And that becomes a big challenge for the coach of the national team. So there has to be a regularized way of coaching players across all disciplines. Some of our clients, we work with the telcos, breweries, foundations, banks. There's a whole host of clients we've been working with, but some of the big events we've done included big conferences. We had an event that had, it's called, last year, ICPD 25. It had 10,000 delegates from all over the world. And that event taught us a lot in terms of managing different people from different backgrounds, different consumers. I was saying this could easily have been a football tournament, like a Fasu Games. Yeah, so we have 10,000 delegates from all over the world coming to convene in one place, get spoken to, and they leave with something that they feel should be of value to them. So the ICPD 25 was a UN event that we held and was one of our most successful ones. And then we've just come off doing the AfriCity Summit in Kisumu. Again, similar number, 10,000 people, of whom 8,000 are from outside Kenya, right? So you have a place where we had about 25 conferences running concurrently. And then they converge in one place, then break into small rooms. Again, you're dealing with multitudes of people. You've got to make sure they keep entertained. They make sure that they're attentive across the whole 6 days. And again, for me, that could easily be a sports festival. Yeah, so how can you pull in 10,000 delegates? And each one was paying $1,000 to come for this conference, right? It's a summit on governance of counties. How do you turn that into a sporting event, and where you have the same kind of pool? They can pay $1,000, come into Kenya for 6 days and enjoy what we have to offer. So it's trying to learn off that principle. How do you turn that into a sporting activity and use that commercially? So I said we're transiting to sports very fast just because of COVID. But I'll run you through some of the events we've done very fast, and then we can just maybe, if there are any questions, you can maybe speak to me post this event. But we've done lots of marathons. We've done over 50 marathons the last 10 years, some of the larger ones. So we have managed to do the Beyond Zero Marathon, thrice Ncaa Marathon, and just recently the Nairobi Marathon that happened 3 weeks ago that was used to launch the expressway. So again, that marathon had easily 18,000 people running on a road, all right? Again, of whom possibly only 2% are professional athletes. Yeah, but we filled the entire express with 18,000 Kenyans running, having a good time. And like again, Cynthia mentioned, experience. People came, had a good time. They paid to run. They paid 500 shillings each to run. They didn't come in for free, and had an amazing time. So again, just off these learnings is how do we build? Because we know we have the capacity to put people together. They come for fun, all right? So how do you keep amplifying this? How do I start filling the gymnasium in Kasarani with those kind of fans every week in, week out? Because there is clearly an affinity for people to be entertained in this country, weekly, if not daily, right? So how do you turn that experience into something that can be now tangible and can actually be amplified and commercialized? Or the other thing that I was going to talk about is, so when FKF was still running, so we signed a contract with FKF to produce 100 games. And I think for us, just before FKF was dissolved, we had a 5-year contract to produce 100 football games. So we partnered with a company called Media Pro. Media Pro are the producers of La Liga in Portugal and Spain, and they brought in a whole host of equipment into the country. All right, so that might give us the capacity to produce 4 games a day using 13 cameras across the country. So just a COVID came at the wrong time, and then the federation was disbanded. But already, what we have capacity internally is now ability to produce as many live games as possible. All right. So again, you'll be seeing a lot more productions. We're talking to the different federations, including basketball, rugby, and motorsports. And I think so far, Cynthia, the most accommodating has been the motorsports fraternity. Very open, very forward thinking. And so we're now producing a lot of motorsports events, not just for Kenya, but for other consumers internationally. We also have a very big partnership with the WRC. So in fact, we're launching a big announcement tomorrow will be made about WRC and its production and its content assimilation in Kenya. So again, those are things that are now helping the brand grow very, very quickly. So I was talking about football. Media Pro being our biggest asset right now. Again, we're the ones who produced the Rwanda Basketball League last year and this year. So all the teams producing that content you see on TV is a Kenyan team supplied by us. All right. So already capacity for us is beginning to stretch, and now we're even moving to a point where we have to start training more and more cameramen, producers, directors, because there's not enough locally. So there's a big opportunity for us, maybe even through KU, to train more and increase the skill set of people who can produce sports. Because now that space is opening up in a very, very big way. Right down from commentators to directors, to runners. There's so much around production of sports right now. Also, some of the events we've got 5-year contracts with. One is the Magical Kenya Open. So Kenya Open is a golf tournament that is run in Kenya every year with a prize tag of $2 million. All right, and that for us is a big deal. It just shows that it attracts a lot of foreign players into this country. So again, last year's Kenya Open, we had some of the top golfers in the world coming here. And we had a very good deal on broadcast rights with the European TV for that. Again, we produce that locally because we have a capacity now. So we're now selling content to other markets across not just Kenya but across Europe. So Kenya Open, I think for us is one of the bigger ones. Yet again, events of this caliber employ close to 200 local staff for 7 days, and those are 200 professionals earning $200 a day. All right. So again, you can see now the impact that bringing an event like this into the country will have on building local capacity. Again, we had a big event on the 8th of May that I mentioned, the Nairobi City Marathon that was used to launch the expressway. Again, this is again classified as the richest race in Africa. Yeah, the prize money for this is $3 million. So athletes, I'm sure next year will have all the top athletes coming into the country. But the winner actually this year, male and female, took home 6 million shillings each. And luckily they're both Kenyans. All right, so you can see there's a big wave coming. There's a big interest in putting big money behind these activities. And so I think all of us have to look at them in contextuality and see how big are these events and what are we doing as locals to leverage off this. All right. Again, the other event that we produced again last year and this year was the Keynote Classic. This is an athletics event held at Kasarani Stadium. It's a track and field event where we had again about 4 athletes who won gold medals in the Olympics come to Kenya. Why? Because the prize money is good. Also, they had a $1.5 million prize purse. So you can see that these events are happening. I'm sure most of you don't know why they're happening. Yeah, but there's a clear impetus for big events now to come into the country and become part of an international circuit. Again, we've just signed up to host the Concours de Legends, which is going to happen in October this year. That's a classic model car show. And we've just managed to sell the rights to a TV partner in China. All right. Again, this is all new to us, but it clearly shows there's going to be a big boost and this is all about content, really. It's not about anything else. It's what people want to watch, how well produced is it, right? So again, I'll task KU. We have to come up with some kind of arrangement where we start training this skill set. It's not there. And for instance, for the marathons, you have to fly in a team from South Africa to help us produce the marathon. We don't have the capacity locally, all right? Luckily enough for the FKF, the La Liga team came in here for 3 months and trained the staff locally. And then sadly that staff has been called to go produce the league in Ethiopia. So we've lost the staff again. So I've got a team of 40 people doing a league in Ethiopia who had been trained to produce a league locally. Yeah, but it's a good problem to have, all right? Yes, I've spoken about golf. Again, the rugby league is launching in Kenya next year. It's a new type of rugby, but it's called rugby league. Again, we've just signed a 3-year contract with them to manage and produce the TV shows, and we're being paid by a company in Ireland to produce this for rugby league. And they're not producing for Kenya. In fact, it's easier to sell these rights to a company in Ireland than to sell it to KBC or KTN. KTN are saying, no, you pay us, like you said. Yeah, while somebody else is paying us to produce, we're being asked to pay for it here. So it's a bit ridiculous. Again, we also signed a contract with the Electronics Esports Federation, so producing a fantasy league and a local esports league. Again, very interesting requests from different partners around the world. People like Twitch have asked us to give them content for a fee. So there's a lot of things happening behind the scenes, and I'm just trying to expound on how, besides just saying what we should do, it's things are already actually in place. Things are actually already happening around that scene. Superbike, I don't know if you guys know there's a superbike scene in this country, very, very big. Again, very big, with very big viewership across, especially South Africa. So again, we've just signed a deal with the SABC to produce 30 hours of superbike every week. All right. Motocross, again, I was telling you, Cynthia, the motor side of it is very accommodating. If you go to basketball, football, there's all sorts of nuances of no, but why, how much, and people don't see the bigger picture. But the motocross guys are a bit open, they understand what it means, so we're getting a lot of that support from them. So we've got about 6 motor disciplines we're partnering with, and they're all willing to give us and see the value of what we bring to the table. Like I said, even with the Safari Rally, there's a big launch tomorrow. We've been making some big announcements, but the rally's just got an extension for 5 years, which is good for the country. So we'll run until, I think, 2029. But again, they've seen the capacity, they've seen the resources available locally, and they've seen the commitment. So again, a lot is happening behind the scenes. We just have to make sure we're on that table when it's going on. So I think that's it for me. I would have gone deeper, but there's a lot that I think Cynthia has mentioned. So I think without any further ado, I just say thank you for, I know I'm the last one, and everyone gets very tired with it here. But thanks a lot, guys.
Thank you so much, Mike. You used your evening time properly. We were all focused on you. Thank you for that and for opening our ears and eyes on things that are happening behind the scenes. But one of the things I just want to urge you is, for both of you, I was in Pretoria a few weeks ago, and one of the things I saw was at the University of Pretoria, they were having a conference, rugby. And on that day, the whole city was in yellow. You know, tooks, they call them. So they were all over. And the reason is the city supports the university. The people in market, the business people support the university in terms of wanting to relate to, because they see the university as adding value to their business. I also saw the industry, the gold mining people and so forth. They come into the university and say, this is what we want to do. We want to train students on this, we want to support. And then those students finally end up working for them. Now you are building a real big brand. In fact, diversified brands you are building. And you may need a capacity in terms of young people who are very energetic, who understand the IT and so forth. You can't stand there and wait for them to come to you. We're expecting that you as a business enterprise will come to the universities and say, we are looking for people of this nature and we're going to support the training of these people so that when they live here, you're getting ready-made people, rather than standing there and saying, universities are producing raw material. I think we need to have a situation where we change the model also and say, let's go to the universities, let's support the universities to strengthen their sports program, their journalism programs, so that we can have hundreds of students we can pick from when we need somebody to do something for us. So that you don't do only 20 and then they run to Ethiopia, then you are nothing. But that way, then we can also be building an interest in your company, because now people in the university, when they hear Homeboys, they say that is our brand. So I just want to urge you to think reverse, so that both university and business are in partnership. In partnership. Okay, any question? Perfect. Yeah. So, Ngugi, yes?
Asking also a few questions that don't have answers. For example, we were told this will be the third All-Africa Universities Games to be played in Kenya. The first ones were in 1978. And I played for Kenyatta University, handball. They still owe me 90 bob. All right? I'm just trying to show you the pathetic, scenario about what is going on, because sponsors want to come in, but they don't want to give. If you look at the games which are starting on Monday, isn't it, this Monday, Thika Highway, KU is very strategically, positioned. I have not seen any banner or any, billboard, something to tell people that from Monday we have this big event. Maybe all the places have been taken by politicians as of now, but something should be there on TV, on big time, that every time I wake up from my house, I can see something about the games that are coming up next week. Try to walk into KU at the main gate. It's a tedious process. So you're not going to get spectators, isn't it? Because how do they come in? When getting into the campus, even for an old man like me, is still a big problem. You know, the screening, give us your ID, where are you going, to do what? You know, we need to ease, you know, to make, we need spectators here, you know, for that event. And then funds from sponsors. You know, I've looked at the booklet we are using, and at the back there are many logos, isn't it, of people who have, I don't know how you are partnering, unless we are dealing with poor sponsors. Yes, so that we just have names there, but the kind of funds that are coming in, because we should have powerful sponsors here listed also. You know what I mean by powerful? You know, people who can tell you, look, we are going to give you 20 million. We are going to give you 50 million for these games. Because university gives them, isn't it, the human capital that they need. And finally, merchandising. Yes? By the way, you give me an idea, I can go and make the t-shirts overnight. Because nobody is going to stop me from bringing them over. Because there is no patenting or anything that has really happened here. And we were told by the VC there is no budget from Treasury that comes into the university with a budget item, sports, isn't it? So I pity you guys, the sports people, we have to go begging the VC. We need 100 bob, we need a bus, we are saying, okay, I taught entrepreneurship here for 6 years, so I understand where you are coming from. And homeboys, you're doing a great job. But can you reverse, like Professor Buala is saying, can you do it the other way around? I've paid media people. You know, instead of them paying us, I've paid them even 2,000 bob so that they can come to the field and put you on TV. That's how low they are. All right? Please let us reverse this system. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that.
Please, let me just answer. Please. Mike will relate. When a CEO sits somewhere and you expect him to give you, he's not going to do it. Am I lying, Mike?
It's true.
I sat with the ABSA CEO 2-3 weeks ago. I told him I have this great program for basketball, and he told me, I can give you 20 million every year or 100, but I'm not going to, because what's the value? I know exactly what he meant. And businesses, their core business is their shareholders. Their core business, their first core, you're entrepreneur, you know. So how then do we package ourselves, which is what you've said? How then do we package ourselves so that we can attract them, that they have no choice? That triangle that I drew, how then do we make our sports, which is what Mike is doing with you, in the next couple of days, make sure that, you know, at this particular point, because we are almost at a starting point, how do we leverage on PR so that maybe this one we might not get ABSA or KCB or whoever else, but we have so much news going until they come to you and ask, how come you guys didn't come to us? Because now they're not going to give you any money. There are no budgets. They're telling you they're closing their year and everything. Then how then do we position ourselves so that the next one, or beyond that, they say KU has 80,000, 70,000 students. University of Nairobi has another 100,000. And Thika Road has God knows how many colleges and universities, and we can do A, B, C, D. I can assure you there are brands that live on this road. You've seen them. Techno is here, Infinix is here. They're always here. But they're doing what their brand wants for them. At the end of the day, it's about the shareholder. So as much as you would want it to come from the other side, and we can help with that in one way or the other, but ultimately we must think, how do we position KU? How do we position UON? How do we position Strathmore? The sports bit. so that everybody else has no choice but to say, if I'm not here, my competitor is going to be here and I need to be here. Thank you.
I think this requires a whole day.
Thank you. My name is Ambrose Kisoi, the Secretary General for Kenya Basketball Federation. I want to get it clearly, and I want us to understand ourselves as sports people and what Mike and Cindy are presenting, because it's not the first time that we are facing this kind of forum with research and us as federations or sports managers from other institutions. And I'm drawing this from experiences. It's because when I bid to host a continental championship as Kenya basketball in Kasarani, as the Secretary General and my committee, what is our objective? Is to see that that activity happens. Once it happens, we have succeeded. When Mike and Cynthia will come along and say, you had a good opportunity to do 1, 2, 3, I didn't have enough time to start thinking that way, because I really needed to struggle with the little that I had to make sure that the event goes through. And I feel the organizers of Fasu, as we speak now, their concern is, where will these people sleep? Are the fields ready? And all that. When the teams arrive and the first whistle goes, I'm telling you, they will be very happy. The day they see the closing ceremony and winners have been announced, they have achieved. Now, this is the disconnect that we have with you guys. That I wish, and it is an extension of what Professor said, I wish that you have an extra eye, that when there's an event of a certain magnitude, you can come and position yourself and sit down with me and tell me that, you know, my friend, you have this coming. You have this phase that you are jumping as you get to the other side. Because when I sit in office now and I know I have a continental championship in 2 weeks, I'm looking at where they'll sleep, who has confirmed, how will they be picked, and all that. I know I need money, but I'll not measure on that, because I know I have some little that can take me to the other side. The other aspect is, we have these levels of sports management by federations, the national and the branch. National, yes, you'll struggle with us at this level and try to explain to us something. But we also have branches, and now this is conjoined with devolution. How do you, as people in between, package yourself to take advantage of devolution, so that from the root, people understand how they are supposed to package their events and who they are supposed to work with in order to succeed? Because I'm telling you that one of the things that people don't know is who to work with. If I land in Kisumu now, and the basketballers in Kisumu know I'm there as a Secretary General, they will be struggling to see who sees me first, because they need a ball from me. Na sina mpira naweza wapatia, na federation haina mipira. But from where I sit, and because I also double up as the director of sports in Makueni County, and I know the way the people cry to the government. Serikali haijatupatia mipira, serikali haijafanya nini. But where that person is seated, next to them is somebody who can support what they are doing. But they have no idea that this is the person and how to go about it. So I think devolution is also something that you people, you need to package yourself as an industry that can intervene so that we don't meet every time and you tell us we don't package ourselves, we don't present ourselves this way. We cannot do everything. Once in this country we agree that there are portions of sports development and let everybody fit where they are supposed to be. If I have a big event, continental, I know I should hand over this to these kind of people. And me, I'm left with this. That will work for us because we cannot run all over and actually achieve the match that is expected of us. Thank you.
Thank you. The chair has told me, you'll respond after they finish, Cynthia. The chair has told me to close, but chair, allow me to ask a lady just to say something and then we close. This is how it goes, man. You lose out.
Thank you, my mwalimu. I'm pretty excited about this. This is pretty new for me because I'm not in entrepreneurship. But I know as universities, one of our mandates is to impact the communities around us. I can see UON is here. I can see all these other universities here. So I'm wondering, with these games and even the marathons, I know we are collecting some good money out of it. The communities around us, what impact will they feel after this? I know back then we used to, people would come and buy merchandise, the spectators. But as universities, I'm just wondering, how do we package ourselves to make sure that every event that we have, even after collecting all these funds, the community, Kahawa Sukari here, Kahawa Wendani, and all these other places have been able to benefit directly from this event. And then sustainability will be achieved, and 30 years from now, they'll be so happy that we host this. So I just want someone to give me a tip. Thanks.
Can I ask, Cynthia, your hand was up, but you'll always be the last. Eh? Yeah. So let's ask Cynthia to say one word, and then you close.
Thank you for the questions. I have been with you in KBF for 7 years before. So I'm going to challenge you because I know exactly what you're talking about. As federations, we know in advance. We know. We knew in advance. When did we win the bid to host Fasu Games? 4 years. It takes 8 years to plan the Olympics. It takes 8 years to plan the World Cup. 8. So by the time you're bidding for something, you know, right? So I agree with you because I've been on your side. I get it. I get the challenge. As sports consultants, we look for these opportunities, right, Mike? Mm-hmm. It's up to us to look for these opportunities. But as owners of properties, it's up to you to find out and say, you can even throw something on the newspaper and say, bid for sports consultant to do A, B, C, D, come and tender, right? You know that, you knew a year ago that the national teams would be going for the championships in June, and it's not the only one. So there are several things. So it's up to us to sit with you, one, and two, for you to build capacity. Because what it's showing is that we lack the capacity to sit and organize ourselves and say, okay, this is the federation side, this is the chairman, the secretary general, whatnot. Can we have somebody of business development? Can we have somebody who runs marketing? Can we have somebody who, yes, we have committees, but can we have that and task them? Or can we register a limited company and employ people? It might not be immediate, but how do we then remove ourselves from the political and have operations run in an operational manner so that they are, reporting to the board, and the board knows that they have been given a mandate to do A, B, C, D, and commercially they must be able to deliver. So I agree with you. I feel the pain. I know it. And I know I'm very passionate about that conversation, very passionate. But we have to have a paradigm shift if we are to change our situation from one where I just want an event to happen to one where I need to make sure that I have the resources for the event to happen at the best experience possible. Thank you.
Mike, you can.
All right. Thank you so much, Cynthia. Thank you for all the questions. And I think this needs further deliberation. I can see a lot of interest in this, and actually it's very critical to see how we can commercialize and make this some of the events self-sustaining. But I'll take it up with KBF. We'll reach out to you and a few other federations. I know, like she's saying, obviously federations are very thin on the ground, and the issue is just to get the job done. And so I understand. So we'll make a deliberate effort to reach out to federations, have this offering, and now that we're building ourselves a very strong infrastructure to support federations to actually now commercialize, including the likes of KU and Fasu games. But we need to have possibly another symposium just to look at ways we can help strengthen the federations and then create a very clean connection between federations and the commercialization side of it. But all in all, I thank you all for being patient. Being the last is not always easy, and thank you, Chairman and team, for hosting this symposium. I think there are a bit more deliberations required to discuss this at much in depth, but I'm sure it's kicked off the thinking. And possibly at the same time next year, we should be thinking about how we build that gap, not still discussing it. But I'll take it upon ourselves. I've seen that, I can feel his pain. I've sat with Prof, and I know what he's gone through. Yeah, so we'll find ways to try and bridge that. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. And let's clap for ourselves for holding on until this hour. That was very good. So I think we'll stop there and start tomorrow. Let me hand over to the boss to say the next words.
Thank you very much. Can we clap for my friend Peter Buara? We have done a really fantastic job throughout the day. As you may have realized, those of you who are here in the morning, I was not myself because by the time we were going to do the courtesy call, this all was 3/4 empty. But by the time we came with the big man, then I realized the hall was full. I was very happy. Now, very quickly, we really want to appreciate your contribution for today. Musubishi, I see here, and I feel humbled. Then for me, Mike, Cynthia, Team Goge, for me, I'm not able to make a distinction between marketing, entrepreneurship, and business. And now I wish Dr. Muigai was here. Very unfortunate, because if we really want to get to the next level, we must change on the way we look at things and the way we interpret them. On a very light note, the team indeed indicated that some of the sponsors here are weak sponsors, but the bottom line is that they are sponsors to start with, or partners for that matter, and that is the starting point. A classical example is when we were running resources for this symposium, the university sent out letters left, right, and center. And then one of the letters seeking for partnership landed into the hands of one of my PhD students. And then he told me, Prof, are you sure this letter is coming from KU? The letter is not telling us how we are going to benefit from the event. So I told him, how do you want us to frame the letter? Then he told me that we only require to be given some little airtime so that we can showcase what we do. We drafted the letter, and that is why that particular firm is appearing here. Because when it comes to entrepreneurship, business, marketing, etc., it's just a question of a symbiotic relationship. We have to be partners in progress. Without necessarily making another presentation, I was directing sports and games in Jomo Kenyatta University, 2006 up to 2010. In 2009, we hosted a sports day where I would invite other universities to come on board. But then discussing with the VC at that time, she indicated to me that there is no money which can be able to support this budget. So we went out, writing letters, left, right, and center, and then we earned the company called Safaricom. Yes, for them, they did not even write back to us. They packed, I think, was it 400 teachers, the green ones. Courier services, they were deposited there in the university. And we celebrated, yes, because the boys and girls had gotten something to wear. Then come Abisa Bank. By that time, they were Bank Race Bank. They ran it into our letter, and then they said, you guys, you can come and discuss. We have 1 million here for you. Then we said, 1 million? You mean, at that time now, it is quite unimaginable that we could get 1 million to run a sports day. But by the end of the day, they committed the 1 million Kenya shillings, and the event was a colorful one. At the same time, I walked into the DVC's office and told them, boss, we are going to invite the CEO of Bank to be the chief guest during the sports day. The DVC was in charge, told me, na wewe Meru natoka wapi? I did not want to say that. But I told him, this is a big event for us because the boys and girls will be squarely involved on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. He told me, go ahead and organize your event, but I'll not be part of it. I said, are you sure? I walked into the Vice Chancellor's office. I shared with her my frustrations with the DVC, who was supposed to mobilize human resource to be part of the event. Then the VC said, okay, go back to him. Now, the mayor in me said, why should I go back to the DVC? I told the VC, don't you know that the chief guest who will be coming to preside over the closing ceremony of this event is none other than the chairman of council at that time. I think now he's busy with the politics. I don't know whether Wajir, the former, somebody Mohammed. The VC, you mean you are bringing the chairman of council here without our knowledge? From there on, she called the DVC, telling her that this is a big event and we have to be part of it. So the DVC was not going to be available on the weekend. It was available throughout the week to ensure that the facilities, equipment, and everything was in place. So the message we are taking home is that we must change the way we look at things. We must embrace the paradigm shift which is there. I hear Kisoi and the Mr. Abuke MBF. I get to Kasarani once in a while to watch volleyball. I only see Kenya Pipeline, KCB, but then in Nigeria, they have done that over the years. But the last appeal is that Cynthia and Mike, please create some time for our students. I think we are very good in terms of teaching them the various theoretical models which are applicable into different situations. But then they would want to hear it from the horse's mouth and how things are being treated out there. If my two chairmen of departments request for you 3 hours in a month, surely, as a way of ensuring that we do things differently, you create time so that we're able to mentor our people in the right way. Finally, we earned an elaborate program. Of course, we have missed a number of presenters. This was not by design. We did expect that Patrick Sang and his son, Eliud Kipchoge, will be here so that at least the marathoner can be able to inspire the younger generation. Because when he opens his mouth, you think that he's a graduate of Harvard University. But he is self-driven and is able to touch the hearts of the many people. But all is not lost. We shall be talking to Cindy and Mike. You see the message I'm taking home. I have not heard you talk about Kenya shillings. Everything is in terms of dollars. Everything is in terms of dollars. So if we requested $10,000 in order for us to have a 2-day symposium, so that we're able to dissect with our students the difference between marketing, entrepreneurship, and business. So that as we roll them out to the market, there will be a different generation of people who can be able to transform on how we run sports in this country. Thank you, Mike and Cynthia, for accepting to partner with us the tune of $10,000. And we have a successful symposium. Because we cannot keep on lamenting every now and then. Then finally, I don't know whether Professor Wanderi is still with us. Very unfortunately, I failed to acknowledge him in the morning, and yet he supervised my master's and the PhD work. But just like I observed is that in the morning I was not myself. Otherwise, for all of us, today I will sleep like a baby, as my grandmother used to say, because of the successes which were put throughout the day. I'm sorry that I'm standing between you and the 4 o'clock or 6 o'clock tea, but tomorrow we have another big day so that we pull through all the presentations I appreciate that some of our co-presenters were told to achieve the aspirations for today, but tomorrow we shall have all the time. We also have two representatives from the University of Nairobi. Could you be upstanding so that we appreciate you? Vijana wapigwe makofi. One of them, we have to create time for them tomorrow to make a presentation on esports. Is my mind betraying me? So we are very keen, we shall be keenly looking forward to your presentation. Otherwise, Dr. Modia, you have something to say? Don't say it in Japanese. Oh, okay. I'm told to really apologize that in Japan now it's after midnight, and some of them are still with us. But that is what it costs to be.
Kenyatta University will host over 2,000 student athletes from all over Africa for the 10th edition of the Federation of Sports University Fasu Games from 6th to 10th June 2022 at the main